And welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. I'm back at this. It's August 21st, 2025. I'm James Jones. I'm joined today by the returning Mr. John Lindeman.
It's great to be back, James.
It's great to have you back, John. I'm gonna assume you listened to all 3 episodes we released while you were gone?
Several times over, yes.
Oh, okay, good. Excellent. Mr. Greg Lay.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
And we are joined today by a very special guest, the former host of Radio Free Nintendo, Jonathan Metz.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. It's been a while since we had you. I need to go back and look how long it's been.
It's right before Switch 2 came out.
Yeah, well, with myself and Guillaume, but of course James and John were not around for this. This is a 2008 to 2012 cast.
Yeah, wow. It is. This is like a really
throwback,
a really particular era of the show. Then, and
I'm sad that Guy isn't here, so we could all 5 do it. I have to say, but
he apparently has been listening to the episodes we record because he posted a screenshot, or he's just trying to make me feel good about myself. I don't know. But Johnny actually messaged me Monday, I think, maybe before, just slightly before then, asking if we were interested in having him hop on the show, which absolutely. And
I was wondering if you were going to do anything special to celebrate, 10 years of your reign.
It just doesn't feel good. Like it's one of those you're like, 10 years, what? I was supposed to be like an interim host.
We recorded till about 7 a.m. last week. Does that count?
It's true.
Yeah.
God.
I mean, the 10-year anniversary of what did you call it? Season 3? No, season 5.
Season 5. So I jokingly changed it to season 6, the first episode I edited in this run, and they have all been called season 6 since then. If I remember to do that, so will this one.
Well, it's
Will I tell Guillaume to call it season 6? Who can say? We might just go back to season 5. But yes, we've been season 5 for 10 goddamn years.
It's a long season pass.
Well, and the music has been the same, right, through that period, and the cast has been the same, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the big change besides the cast, we changed the ending music, or we replaced the ending theme we had with video game music. But
yeah,
the spreadsheet now is daunting. The one that has all the music we've used, it's really crossed to the point where it was like, oh, this is nice, to like, oh my god, there's so many songs here. It's so long.
Well, yeah, it's been over 500 episodes probably since Greg started introducing those songs at the end.
We are remarkably methodical. It is like
the first one was 440 and this is 940.
Yeah, you get 50 episodes a year out of us. It is on like machine driven.
Pretty consistent.
Because we usually miss one around the holidays, and we oftentimes miss one in the summer. And that's just the engine rolling.
I think we're all just creatures of habit.
Oh, I mean,
at this point.
Definitely.
We don't like changes to the schedule. We just don't want to change anything. It works. Just
keep rolling.
And
change is scary.
You're dedicated, right? I mean, I think I have plenty of praise I could heap on you guys, and I hope I'll spread it throughout the episode, ideally. But one thing I've been thinking about lately, I'll make this about me at first, but it's actually about you. I've been thinking, if I ever have to do another job interview, God forbid, I think I have not said enough about my skills as a hiring manager. I've never really thought of myself in that way, but when I look at what you guys have done, and especially, James and John have been on the show consistently, or like consistently in quotation marks, for 16 years now.
Oh my God.
It's just unbelievable. And, I think it's true that I basically handpicked all of you, including Guillaume as well. And I think just the fact that you guys are still doing this, doing it well, and doing it so consistently is remarkable. And I don't know how that worked out, but I think it's incredible. So Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that the show is still going. I mean, when I stepped away from it, I was wondering, but I knew you would take a really good crack at it and you would do your best. And I wouldn't have put money on it being around 10 years later. I mean, it hadn't even been around for 10 years up to that point. But I'm not shocked that it's still going, and I hope it goes on for a lot longer.
It's a weird thing when I think about it. Like, God, it's been so long, but to the point where has it crossed a Rubicon where now it's like, okay, if we ever wanted to move on, could we even I don't think we could just hand it to different people in one shot, which is what happened when we more or less took the show over.
Yeah.
I don't think we could do that. Like, it would have to be piecemeal, like a ship it through. I can't remember the but like we just replace one piece at a time. But that would feel really weird and awkward too. And like anytime there's a cast change, it's like gotta find grooves with everybody. How hard can I punch at someone when I feel the urge?
Yeah. Which is, I mean, I don't think it's completely inflexible. No. If it came down to it, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't think you could do a full replace. I think that would just be like the show's over.
It would be a different show.
Show's
entirely.
done. New name.
Yeah, and listeners, when James mentioned earlier about when we took over, he was referring to early 2008. So ask your parents. And he's referring to when Radio Free Nintendo sort of became a different show because Carl and Stan and all the original creators, Mike and Evan, they had all decided they weren't going to host it anymore, and so they handed it to me. And I had to figure out how to make a podcast almost overnight with a completely new crew of people. And I'm still talking to those guys tonight.
It was a very, like, those first few episodes are very weird, but it's a pretty quick rhythm that we settle into, which is nice. The formula, the formula helps, and we still more or less do the formula. Like we fuck around more now. Like, I think that's just part of, we've been doing it for so many years that it's hard to be like, okay, let's stick to the formula. It's like, no, we're going to talk about some bullshit for 20 minutes. Who cares?
It was funny too, Jonny, because I still remember when you sent me the email, and you said, I still have the email, and you said, okay, you guys are who I nominate to be on the podcast. And I was like, okay. Not even like thinking what I was getting myself into.
Whatever, I guess.
Just on a lark, sure. Yeah, okay, yeah, it sounds like fun. Whatever.
Screw it.
I'll hop on, record something.
I didn't even have an RFN email.
It was as simple as that.
Wendy still hadn't given me an email address yet.
Yeah.
I was still using my personal email because that was the only one I had. I was like, can I get an email address, please?
I don't know if we've ever really talked about this before. It would have been a long time ago if we did, but to be honest, I don't remember a ton about my strategy for selecting people, or I mean, I think I can say there were no auditions, there was no application process, nothing like that. I mean, I just kind of tried to pick people who I thought would make for a good conversation, and I know I went with John because I'd known him a long time. John was one of the first people I ever met from the website, and we had talked in person and online many, many times. And I thought he had like a great history and a great perspective, and it was different than mine, and we could have good conversation. And James and Greg, both of you, I think I had rarely, if ever, had actually spoken to either of you before. I'd heard you on as like guests on earlier episodes. So I'd heard you on podcasts, and I just thought both of you had something to bring, and I thought it would be good.
I did one radio trivia.
Well, okay. So that's, and I knew your writing as well. I certainly knew both of your writing. And I honestly, I think initially I thought, well, maybe I'll try these people, and then maybe we'll try a different set of people, and maybe we'll mix and match. And I don't know if it'll be rotating, or maybe we'll just kind of try some stuff out, and then it'll eventually settle into something. And it just worked the first time. Like I never had any inclination that I should re-roll the dice and try a different combination of people or anything. It just felt like, oh yeah, I mean, this is it. It just happened.
We talk about like 103 is a disaster, which it is. But also, I had only been on 20 podcasts at that point, and now I'm hosting it. It's like, all right, everything's on fire. Let's just burn this whole shit down. And the fact that I got ambushed also didn't help. But, like, that's to me is the point, like, hey, actually, this is fine. This crew is fine. Because the next episode, everybody came back and got to be salty at each other, and it was fine. And nobody cared. It was just like, let's have this episode where everyone's going to be salty, but I'm going to be out next week and Greg is hosting. I'm like, all right. Yo, you're fair. No, that's fair. I don't deserve a second shot at this right now.
Oh my God. Nobody made more mistakes in the early days than I did. Okay, so
oh yeah, but it was just like,
you don't need to defend 103. We're
all like, hey, this works out just fine after all. It's fine. We can shoot at each other. Like, there is a period of the show where I think it's right before you transitioned out, where there's like this period where the show it was very different than it is now because everybody was in a different kind of role. Guillaume had been with us for a while at that point, but still
a few years.
Yeah. You and Guillaume were often trying to have at least a semi-serious conversation, and then in the background is just John and I sniping at each other for like 2 straight hours.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like completely
to the point where it was
nothing.
Yeah, I feel like to the point where it was a little bit like we almost kind of like derailed the show several times.
Well, I think you and John, I think both of you guys spent a fair bit of time, maybe even during the recording, trying to figure out how to like make fun of me or like undermine what was happening, and especially undercut my self-seriousness, which is, probably necessary on a regular basis.
So taking over as host, there's like this weird chaos demon that wants me to derail the show all the time. And I'm like, bro, I'm hosting. Shut the fuck up. I can't deal with that right now. And
yeah, I think that comes through, James.
Hey, tell them about War of the Worlds on Amazon Prime Video. No! I'm not going to do that. There's no one's ready for that. It's like, but it's really good. No, it's not.
I spent about 10 minutes listening to that episode, screaming the word "unfriended" at the stereo.
Oh yeah,
in my car.
We got there. We did get there.
You got there, right?
It's such a fucking terrible movie. Hey, I'm not going to say how much bourbon we drank watching Unfriended. There were multiple empty bottles on the floor by the time it was done. There were not that many people in the room. It was necessary. But we're not here to talk about cirrhosis of the liver or Unfriended. No one's ever around to talk about Unfriended. I did want to start with a little piece of trivia for John. John's been out for a little bit. I'm not going to quiz him about the shows because I know he watched them. He's committed them to memory. And that's, I'm not going to give him the opportunity to flex like that. I'm not going to quiz him about the very relevant articles I've written about the shows that happened while he was gone. Or why I believe that the pizza of New LA can't be Detroit style, although that is documented. Instead, I'm going to ask you about news because Gamescom's happening right now, which as we discussed a couple weeks ago, is the S in there. It's not the Gamecom. That's the Tiger Electronics device. It's the Gamescom. That's the conference in Germany. John, we were talking about the revival of Acclaim before we started recording. By the way, for those of you at home, Acclaim, somebody bought the rights to the Acclaim name and is trying to revive it, so get your bunkers ready, I guess. John, do you know what other denizen of the 90s made another appearance in our lives at Gamescom this week?
It was Bubsy, was it not?
It was Bubsy 4D.
Yeah, I saw this. I feel like probably the journalist in me should have dug into this, but
what about the shit disturber in you? Did he want to dig into this?
No, I did not want to even engage with this. It was repellent to me.
It's correct. It's repellent. It is utterly repellent. It's this weird period of we're going to talk about how terrible Bubsy is as part of the selling, and I'm like, no, stop it.
It's just like I just look at it. I'm just like, okay, you win. I mean, I've seen it all. Sure, yeah, Bubsy. Why not?
Why not? Bubsy, Bubsy why not?
It's. I mean, those games were released.
Game title.
Those games were originally released. They were mediocre, kind of terrible. It became a joke that they were terrible.
Yes.
So they brought him back, and everybody's like, haha, he's terrible. And so now they're bringing him back again, playing again on the joke that he's terrible.
Yes.
So
correct. This is
what kills me, because Bubsy 3D is far and away the worst Bubsy game and the most notorious of them all. So calling it 4D just makes it sound like a direct successor to Bubsy 3D, and you didn't have to go there.
But then half the trailer is them talking about the fact there's a Bubsy 3D costume and how terrible Bubsy 3D is. And I'm like, but why is Bubsy having flashbacks to Bubsy 3D? What is happening? Like,
I think you have to own it if you're going to make this project, but also the fact that you have to own it is probably good evidence that you shouldn't do this project.
This is a J&J Dream Factory idea. That there's been a bunch of these lately where I'm like, did John and I talk about this on a page? I mean, on a shoot, I'm blanking on it now. The telethon episode. Is this a J&J Dream Factory bit? And the answer is no, because not even we would have been like, bring back Bubsy and Gex in the same calendar year. The Lord demands it. No. That's not okay. Nobody wants that. But that's the thing. But we're not here to talk about Bubsy either, because no one is here to talk about Bubsy. No one is ever anywhere to talk about Bubsy, because there was another direct this week. You all are getting spoiled by directs, and I'm going to call this nature's most inscrutable direct, because I'm going to use an email we got from Reg McFly, who writes, "Dear RFN, having recently watched the Kirby Air Riders direct, I once again have been absolutely overloaded by the granularity that Sakurai puts into his game. From the effects of characters on machine weights to sizes to ensuring that everyone has their own capture mechanic. So here's the deal. Sakurai is released from Smash and Kirby jail and has one more game in him. Like he's got one more fight. You're going to get the full Sakurai AI, the frankly unnerving attention to detail and digging into character lore that you expect from a Smash game. As an RFN gang, you are the Nintendo board. You only get one more game out of him, and he's happy to work wherever. What series are you going to argue as a podcast consensus? Adding physics and weight to Pikmin items, further complicating Pokemon battles, giving Chibi-Robo a bit of UI sparkle, or something even more mad. Honestly, the most mad thing about this game was this direct. It was like custom built to be impossible to write a wrap up on. It's like, here's a little bit about one feature. All right, we're going to talk about something else now. And I'm going to talk about that for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to come back to the first thing and give you a couple more features. But then we're going to zip to a different topic. And now we're back. Let's talk about this third thing. It's like, how do you write a rundown of that fucking thing? You have to watch it like 4 times. I was like, okay.
A little exhausting.
Yeah, it was incredibly. It's 45 minutes.
I had to watch it over 2 days. I had to like break it up into more digestible chunks.
I was sitting there going like, I had forgotten what Sakurai directs are like. This is...
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, let's face, how long was some of the Smash DLC broadcasts? And that's a character.
Yes.
Plus a stage and music.
Let's talk about SNK's history for 22 minutes.
Maybe some other stuff thrown in, like some Mii costumes that got in the same update, or so. But a small one slice of a sort of tranche of additional content.
Yes.
Compared with essentially, well, he's going to feel obliged to reintroduce this as if it never existed, because Kirby Air Ride, the original, is more than 20 years old.
Right.
On a console not that many people owned, and it wasn't even, an especially popular game, the way that Melee was, for instance, on the console. So, yeah, you basically, he's going to be, his instincts are going to be do it from scratch. It's no surprise it was long. No one else could get away with it, obviously. No. I think it's safe to say, when Nintendo has dedicated directs for other games, they are not nearly this long. And especially as, this was the first gameplay footage, right? That was the thing, because, it was the sort of Switch 2 kind of pre-launch direct, just to have a little bit of CG stuff for the game, but then to say it's coming out this calendar year did feel a bit like, really? Like, are you sure? But you had to think actual gameplay footage was coming, pretty soon at some point. We're well into the second half of the year now, for it to stay on that target. So it's not before time, but it is the first time we've seen gameplay. So equally, it's not going to be the last word either. You've even said there's things I haven't were shown today that they're not going to give away the store naturally when it's not coming out till really quite close to the end of the year. So yeah, no surprise that it was this long. No surprise that it's the kind of stuff that no one else would possibly envision doing in a Nintendo Direct. And just the existence of the game itself very much feels like it's Sakurai cashing in at least some of his chips here to be able to do this. And so yeah, I mean that would I know
Greg,
it's
he claims that he was asked to make it.
But my understanding of that bit, I know what you mean. It was a bit vague, I guess, to translation and whatnot. But my understanding is perhaps it was like basically we want you to pitch us something for Switch 2, and it's like what it actually is up to you. That was kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. That was just my initial sort of response to it.
I have to imagine if his response to that, well, what if we made a Kirby Air Riders sequel? The response would be, okay, try picturing it again. Like really close your eyes hard this time. Give it a second shot. I think it's still in there.
Well, okay. I got a couple thoughts on the why of it all, right? And
yes.
Maybe I should preface by saying I've never owned Kirby Air Ride, the original, and played precious little of it. Maybe no more than an E3 demo or something like that. I mean, I don't have a lot of memories of even playing the game when it came out. But I thought that Kirby Air Ride really was not a very successful release. And I was wrong about that. Neil Ronahan, he schooled me on Blue Sky. And I had called it a bomb because Justin Berube, another staffer, he pointed out this incredible fact that in the fall of 2003, at least in the U.S., there were four first-party racing games were released for GameCube in a span of 4 months. So you had Mario Kart Double Dash, you had F-Zero GX, which I think was the first out. You had Kirby Air Ride, and then 1080 Avalanche in the span of 4 months. And so not all of them were successes, as you might imagine. And I thought only Mario Kart really you could consider a success, but Kirby Air Ride sold over 1 million copies eventually and was generally, I think, performed pretty well at the time. So that surprised me because I just don't feel like you hear people talk about it much. And in the GameCube era, I didn't feel like my friends, my crew, the people on the staff, and the people I knew at college were not playing Kirby Air Ride. Probably it was targeted at and actually found success with a younger demographic, I think, who, of course,
the other element of it is that it's one of those GameCube games. There's certainly more than a few, and the fact that it wasn't like a super popular platform is a big part of this, I guess. But it's one of those games where the price of it, for a physical copy today that's from the North American market or the European market is pretty steep. It kind of suggests there weren't that many copies out there, right? So, it might be natural to assume it didn't sell enormous numbers. I would have to assume, and this is pretty much true with anything Kirby, that it was more successful in Japan, relatively at least. And certainly it's much easier to get a physical copy of the game if it's Japanese, because they probably just made more of them, because Kirby, I think, probably especially at that time, was just a bigger deal in Japan. And I've got a Japanese copy because it wasn't very expensive. I don't think I've ever mentioned playing it because I've never really played it that extensively. I've just kind of did enough to see all the different tracks and all that. But obviously, it's in principle, a lot of its value probably be in, playing the city trial mode in multiplayer, which is not something that's going to happen these days. You missed the boat on that. But it was still interesting to kind of take a look at it and really, because again, it was something that, especially, I think, with F-Zero coming out that year. I had F-Zero GX when it came out, played it to death. Like that was the racing game for me. I did have Double Dash as well. Eventually, that obviously had a much more multiplayer appeal than F-Zero, because it's more accessible, the battle mode, all this kind of stuff. So yeah,
it's co-op too.
Yes, exactly. There's something that I really feel like they could have, explored again more, even without necessarily like building the entire game around it, but they haven't. Yeah. But in any case, yeah, my racing game, GameCube appetite was pretty well fed that year as it was. So yeah, it was not something I had at the time, but buying a Japanese copy, just playing it many years later, what did strike me looking at it, relative to Mario Kart anyway, not so much like F-Zero naturally, is like it was fast and flashy and arcadey in a way that like Double Dash so isn't. Like Double Dash is very kind of pedestrian as a racing game, and kind of like quite plain looking and stuff. It's utilitarian, right, for the kind of action that they've got in it. Whereas Kirby has definitely got, Kirby Air Ride, the original, for a game. Obviously, it's going to look pretty basic if you're just comparing it to games today, but I think compared to its contemporaries, it had some of that kind of Sakurai panache and that feeling of being very kind of kinetic and everything. But the thing that you read about it at the time was just it's not very deep. It's too kind of pared back. The Smash Brothers in its day originally was kind of, in some quarters praised, in some quarters maybe more derided for saying, hey, all these like inputs to do special moves, how about we don't have that? How about we just have a special attack and a regular attack, and you vary them with which, sort of a cardinal direction you shift the stick in. That was kind of a bit divisive. But yeah, comparing it back to one button that you press to slow down was definitely something that was made fun of a lot. And Sakurai was charged with, once again explaining that in this direct, and also apologising for the introduction of a second input.
Yes. It goes back to, and I'm pretty sure I'm stealing this from Carly, a former NWR staffer, who likes Air Ride a lot. Like she talked about
biggest fan I know.
Many times, to the point where eventually I'm like, I've never played it, right? She described the game as push A to not win, but sometimes to win. Because A was basically a break, and that was your primary input. It was like press A just like it is in this game. I guess it's B in this one. It's essentially a break button that allows you to charge a boost and change directions. And it was like the whole idea was, in theory, if you just held down the button, you would never leave it's like the only racing game where holding down the button means you never leave the starting grid. Which is the joke she was making, but like it's a very insane phrase when you think about it. Sakurai made a racing game where you push a button to not go, which is like the ultimate in Sakurai control mechanism of like, what if the acceleration is out of your hands? You're just always accelerating. You're always accelerating. And he talks about it here. He talks about how like your acceleration is your acceleration. It just happens automatically. Your job is to try to like throttle that back.
The world has caught up to this idea to some extent. I can tell you that my wife and I both have started using auto accelerate in Mario Kart World because when you play that game for extensive periods of time, your thumb can start to hurt because you're holding the gas basically nonstop.
And it's digital, so like it's not like an analog component to it.
Yeah, right. And it starts to feel completely pointless and unnecessary. And so if you turn on, it's one of the assist features, and the auto steering I think should go extinct. I think that's, and unless it's your first time playing Mario Kart, it drives me crazy and actually gives me motion sickness sometimes, the way it jerks you back so hard when you're trying to take a shortcut or something. But the auto accelerate I find very convenient and comfortable.
What was that, Greg?
The auto steering, why isn't it just, you can switch it off?
You can switch it off, but it's on by default. And when you're in a multiplayer environment where you're often taking turns switching out controllers, things like that, it's quite easy to end up playing with it when you didn't want to, and you can't easily turn it off during the race.
During the race, no, that would be more problematic.
And of course, in Mario Kart World, the races could be 10 minutes long if you're doing a knockout tour. So that really becomes a hassle.
Yeah, I noticed it was on by default very quickly, and then switched it off and didn't think of it again. But they was, I don't believe it was on by default when they introduced it in Mario Kart 8, whichever bit of Mario Kart 8 it came in with. So I'm not sure why they felt the need to put it on by default, but there it is.
Yeah, it's kind of a really disgusting feature, I think. I mean, I don't hate that it exists, but I hate the way that it is pushed upon us, and I don't like the way it's implemented. But auto accelerate is totally fine, and it turns out that you can still press the gas on the timing with the start timer to get your little boost, and then after that I have to remind myself, oh yeah, you don't have to keep pressing the button. And there's, as far as I can tell, there's really no downside to using it. So that's been quite nice, and it's one less thing you have to think about really in Mario Kart. And you can still brake, but I don't. But you can,
Yeah, that's fair. It kind of reminds me of like the auto charge in some of the Game Boy Mega Man games, because there's so few buttons to play with. Like, all right, fine, charge is just on automatically. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, because it's handy.
They're like, hey, do you want to slide? Press select on the Game Boy. And I'm like, no, I don't want to slide that badly, actually. I don't want to reach down to the select button on my Game Boy. Thanks. I'll pass. Yeah, that totally makes sense. But there is a weird kineticness that, I mean, we joke about Sakurai's wife and her menu creation eccentricities. This game specifically, all of the shit on screen, like the pickups and things, reminds me very heavily of Smash Brothers for 3DS. Yeah. Where there was that single player mode where you could just pick up power-ups and things.
Oh, Smash Run, yeah. I mean, there was a clear lineage with that, and City Trial, which again was the mode that I'd always heard people kind of got the most traction with players with the original Kirby Air Ride. So yeah, Smash Run was kind of a successor to that, in that, it's kind of like, okay, you're going to have a 5-minute kind of pre-event sort of phase, even though it's far lengthier than the main event itself. It's where you got all this sort of environment that you can kind of explore and take down enemies in or whatever, and just also find these pickups that are just strewn about, and the stat buffs of various kinds. So I guess, to some extent, maybe it gives you a little bit of agency about, what are you going to kind of go for, but also there's a hell of a lot of luck involved in terms of, well, what's there to be had. And I mean, the problem that I had with Smash Run in terms of, I liked the concept of the kind of like a little bit of a throwback to like the adventure bits in Melee, where you're actually just kind of beating up enemies and stuff, but you're doing it to get these stat increases and whatnot. Like that part of it was decent enough, and it could be quite satisfying when you kind of got on a bit of a roll. Like, you started increasing your attack power, and then you start beating the enemies a lot quicker, and then you're just beating loads of them, and eventually you just have a really good run, and you just buffed up to high heaven on a bunch of different stats, and how much that's going to help you. The problem that I thought where it didn't really pay off was just like how that manifests itself in the quote unquote real game at the end, where it's just like, okay, so we did all this for 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever it was of just like a pretty much an ordinary Smash game, but someone's probably got way better stats than everybody else. It just, it didn't feel proportionate. It didn't feel like a proper payoff. And I don't know how well that balanced out in Kirby Air Ride myself, the original, because like I said, I didn't really get to play multiplayer with it. And I'm a little bit skeptical based on what we've seen in this direct of how well it's going to work out in this sequel. Because again, it just kind of felt like, okay, we're doing these like weird, almost like kind of monkey ball mini games or something.
A little bit
at the end. and it's like, how are these stat buffs that you're building up? It looks fun. It looks a lot more vivid and, flashy than the city trial in the original game. And I like the concept and all that, but I still don't know if there's going to be that kind of proper payoff. It's over here. There used to be a game show called The Crystal Maze, where you kind of they had teams that had to do these like puzzles and stuff, almost like sort of in person like Zelda puzzles and things to win crystals. And it's like that part of the show was interesting enough, but it's like it always kind of lost it for me when you remember what the crystals actually do, which is just like, oh well, the more crystals you have, the more time you have at the end to just like be in a sort of dome full of fans that are blowing a bunch of like tokens in the air, and you just got to collect them. It was just like, no, it's just rubbish at the end. It falls apart. I worry that it's going to be like that, basically.
I having never played it, it was hard for me to gauge what was new and what was carryover from the original. But even he introduced City, what's the called? I want to call it City Connection, but that's a terrible
City Trial.
City Trial. Okay, that's a terrible platforming game.
They've kept the same name.
Yeah,
they actually call the company that these days, City Connection. I think
they do.
It's whatever company's got all. Is it the Jalico library or something?
Yes.
They call themselves City Connection after that game with the car. It's the platform game.
I don't know why that game's not very good. No. It's so weird. It's so weird to be like, we're going to name our company after this. But I mean, granted, it's Jalico. Like, what are you going to do? They did. I mean, they released fucking Wampum with not the original Japanese game. No, just like 2 weeks ago. So like, they don't care. They clearly don't care. The main game mode, honestly, with like just the regular racing, it felt really disinteresting. I'm going to be honest. I was like, I was looking at my watch going, how are they going to stretch this to 45 minutes again?
Kind of felt like Sakurai didn't think that part of the game was very interesting either. I don't know if other people felt that way, but
he introduced City Trial, and here's the main mode of the game. Even he's like, it's a racing game. There has to be a racing mode, but I don't actually care about that.
It kind of just felt more like he's explaining the basics of how the game works in that context more than this amazing race. But again, maybe there's going to be more in that respect in terms of it's like 6 people, 6 participants now. Are they going to have like just your kind of Grand Prix type of stuff with a number of tracks strung together? Are they going to try and do something that's more like adventure-ish, like you've had in some of the Smash Brothers games? Or I have no idea, but
we'll find out in the next direct, the next Kirby Air Riders direct.
For a broadcast of this length, it's a weird thing to say, but they didn't dwell on it that particular aspect.
This direct was 3 times the length of the Bonanza direct that we got about 2 months ago. I mean, granted, we had that Treehouse Live segment, but as a direct, this is 3 times the length of that direct. That's an insane decision that Nintendo allowed Sakurai to make. We've talked about his directs in the past and how they are meandering, and not that the show has any grounds to make that joke.
Sure. But,
how they're essentially meme inventing, where he's talking about how he likes to play his games with one hand resting on top of the controller and another hand resting on a different controller playing a different character.
Yeah, where was the second controller? Big disappointment for me. Yeah.
Or he talks about, like, I'd love to have a trackball, and it's like, bro, what are you fucking talking about? We didn't get to see the feet of any character as a PVC figurine that he keeps at his desk. We didn't get any of that stuff. Like, this is a restrained, tired-looking Sakurai who still managed to give us 45 minutes on Kirby Air Riders. 16-player multiplayer, which is interesting.
Well, it's really 8-player multiplayer plus 8 bots.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they said but they said 8 for wireless play, local wireless play.
Oh, okay.
I thought you could have 16 players online for City Trial itself, because that's the only mode where that many people get in at the same. Because I think the racing mode is limited to 6 anyway. But yeah, 16 I think for City Trial, but then again to this issue of the payoff, it's like people file into different like finales, you know, like that, and you might be the only one, and you win by default.
But then you get to race bots anyway, just so you don't feel left out.
Just to test out, you know, the 6 stats that you built up. Like, I reiterate, I wonder whether, again, in the end, it's its own reward, right? If you had fun for those 5 minutes, in the bit, just messing about, building up your stats and whatever else you were doing, that maybe that's good enough. But it do risk, I feel like it just feeling like it doesn't hang together very much with the end game there.
This game is just surreal. Like, it just constantly the ideas that are in it, and it almost feels like ideas were just kind of assembled. Like, we have this matrix of ideas, and we are going to mix and match them accordingly. Which may more or less be what the game is. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess the point of it being an idea, and I guess we could sort of try and maybe see if we could come up with some things to satisfy Reg McFly's question.
Oh yeah,
but it's. Clearly, he believes in these ideas. That's the point, isn't it?
Oh,
really?
yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we've established that Kirby, the Air Ride, the original, was not just like completely disappear without a trace or anything. You know, it had a certain reach for a GameCube game, but I believe that was the last one that Sakurai made while he was actually at HAL.
Yes.
And then once it was done, he kind of went off on his own. You know, he got some things like Meteos, and of course he was drafted rapidly into figuring out what to do with Smash Brothers, even before they'd actually kind of told him that they were going to do that.
Maybe you guys can confirm this, but wasn't Kirby Air Ride his return to Kirby after over a decade?
Yeah, well, I guess because, again, on the notion of, like, getting trapped doing Smash Brothers, that had already happened to an extent, right? In terms of, you put together the original Smash and Melee. Yeah, I think that sort of tied him up away from the Kirby games, for quite a number of years, yeah. And so the point is, all the 20-some-odd years later, everything that we kind of have observed supports the notion that it's pretty much like, and seemingly what he said himself, like they would have, I think Nintendo would have been receptive to just about any pitch that he had, apparently, for a Switch 2 exclusive. But he went back to this. He didn't, the various options that Reg McFly was positing about, something with Pikmin or Pokemon or Chibi Robo or anything you want to come up with. Obviously, did Kid Icarus in the past, which was an interesting one. He went back to this, and it doesn't look like it's some radical reinvention of it either. It's more just like, no, I'm going to do it, presumably. You know what the GameCube era was like. It kind of felt like everything was kind of, there was a real pressure to get everything out of the door as fast as you could, that applied to the very, most kind of mainline, high-profile Nintendo internal stuff like Wind Waker and Sunshine, as much as it would to something like Kirby. And maybe he just feels like he wanted to do it right this time, without getting that kind of pressure applied. And maybe there were some things he wasn't entirely satisfied with the first time. But I feel like it really speaks to the conviction that he has for it. So I guess it's just going to be fascinating to see how many of us at the end of it feel like that did pay off.
Go ahead.
I got a question for John. I don't think you've seen this direct, John, but I just wonder.
I'm just actually watching it right now.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so between that and hearing us talk about it, I just wonder. And this question, I'd like to hear from all of you. But like, are you into this? Like, is this something that you're thinking about getting at $70 full price?
No. Not even close. I hate Kirby, man. There is nothing that is further off my radar than this game.
It is one of those games that is so borderline inscrutable that I sit there and go like, all right, this is weird beyond reason. Am I kind of into it as a consequence of that, or is that just my broken ass brain going, look at this weird shit, look at it, you want it, you want this weird garbage? Because there is a part of my brain that just wants to eat trash, and it's like, hey, look at this. Look, this doesn't this look completely inscrutable? You want that? You want to put that poison in me? And I'm like, I don't actually. But yeah, part of me wants to play it. I don't know that I want to own it, if that makes sense. It's not a money thing. Like, I make enough money that I can buy a $70 game and not feel, even if I don't like it, not feel like I'm going to be hurting for it. It's more of a like, do I want this to be part of my life from now until the end of my Nintendo account? And the answer to that might be no. But I definitely want to see it. I want to have that experience. And so the gateway drug might be just giving that man $70 and moving it to a folder once I've decided I've seen enough.
So you basically want to play it over at somebody else's house.
Yeah. I need a friend who has a Switch 2 and Kirby Air Riders. And
yeah, they need to get liberal with game share, is what we're saying. I don't know that they're going to be that generous, unfortunately.
I would love to show this to like the girlfriend, but I'm pretty confident she'd look at it and go, "This is fucking chaotic as hell. What do you do here?" And my answer to her would have to be shrug. I don't know. And I think that's part of the appeal. Like, I think the fact that the direct feels like it jumps around in a way designed to create confusion. Like they were playing a mind game with the audience and winning. I think that almost has its own sort of semi-toxic appeal to me of like, I can't follow this at all. I need to look more into this. I need to have this experience because I'm very confused. And that's not a healthy way to live. I think that's the problem. That's not a healthy way to live. But Sakurai's brain poison might have been successful, and I might give them $70 for a game that I don't even understand. Bravo.
This is such a strange direct. I can tell you. I'm just watching it right now.
Well, look, consider it's actually been, after the decade-long journey of, like, from Smash Brothers 3DS and Wii U, morphing into Ultimate and the DLC, and that went on for basically, like I said, 10 years of information coming out. We've actually had a few years off from that. So it's...
Our defenses are down.
It's a bit of a trip to go back to it. And like I said, there's even more exposition required here. I mean, there've been some long gaps between Smash Brothers games, but I think there's always going to be more of a assumption about, what Smash Brothers is, right? Whereas,
right.
That wouldn't really be sensible to make in the same way with this particular game. I mean, for me, reviews are going to be very important here. Because there's definitely plenty of intrigue with Sakurai doing something that isn't Smash Brothers. I've vastly enjoyed Smash Brothers over the years. I've Kid Icarus I liked. I mean, not without reservations in some areas, but overall I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed how much of his kind of flourishes you could see in it, while it was a very different kind of game. So that theoretically could be in play here. I paid a modest amount of money for a copy of the original that I was never going to be able to get the full enjoyment out of it. So, I think there's a baseline here where I'm willing to give it a try. But I think the key factor is going to be how much the reviews kind of suggest, and it will be a projection, at least, if you're thinking about getting it straight away. Certainly don't have to. You could wait and see how these things pan out, but there's a downside to that as well, in that the online play, right? Does the online play look like it's going to be something that can give it legs? Because if it does, then I think you could say, you come in, you can enjoy the flashiness of the presentation. You know, I've certainly got to like Kirby a lot more over the years, since, you know, becoming a big Smash Brothers fan. I've played a lot more of the Kirby series, got to, you know, see a lot of the characters and stuff, you know, the references they're going to be making with all these callbacks and stuff, so the music. So, you know, that kind of the presentational stuff will land okay. But then what's going to keep you there is the idea of like, yeah, you can go online, it's going to be people playing it, and it's going to be fun, and it can kind of be sustainable in that way. That's the question, and we're a long way away from that being answered. And yeah, reviews are definitely going to be a big part of that, but yeah, also it might be a little bit of wait and see. But again, if you wait too long, maybe the player base falls off and it's not as much fun online anymore. So ARMS was a bit like that. If you remember, back in that, the first year, which it was roughly around about this time relative to the launch, I think, that ARMS was coming out, wasn't it? Back in 2017, and again, like being there right at the beginning, it was more fun. It was quite fun. There were quite a few players for a game that was probably never likely to be a massive success. It was just kind of a modest one for a launch sort of year title. I can't imagine it was as much fun in some ways if you came in later. I mean, there was more stuff. They did more fighters. Oh, yeah. They did but it probably wasn't as much. It didn't feel as active anymore. And I don't know whether it would have been. And maybe the people who were left were like really good and just socked the hell out of you.
What are they going to call the test punch for this game? I mean, you're going to struggle to top test punch. Test punch is going to be the all-timer.
Oh, you mean the online playtest beta?
Yeah, when they do a playtest, the test glide.
Test glide, yeah, that's probably it. That's boring. Like the test eat.
Or just ride, I guess.
Test ride, that's boring.
One thing I'm still kind of blown away by, now that we've actually got to the point of, hey, you can pre-order this. Here's the box for the physical game. The logo is still the same as it was with when they did the reveal with just the CG, and it is so plain.
It's very plain.
It's placeholder as all shit, and it still looks like that. I'm kind of amazed.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense, because you would think they would want to make it look as chaotic as the game seems to want to look.
Well, at the very least, like, there's a standard, like, Kirby word mark, is there not?
Yes.
Like, you kind of have to do that. And yet, no. Kirby is just written in the same plain style as the rest of it. So that's a bit peculiar. I mean, utterly meaningless, but peculiar.
Could still change.
It could. It feels like at this point, I mean, we've seen the box. Like, we know what the retail release is going to look like. They could change that, but I would be surprised. It feels like it would be self-defeating. I'm fascinated by everything about this. Like, I legitimately believe there is no way that Nintendo was like, Air Rider's great. Or I feel like I'm like, Air Rider's great. Awesome.
Like unwrapping your Christmas present and it's was it Lee Carvalho's putting challenge or whatever.
Exactly. Yes, balls in parking lot.
Yeah, I feel like this is just like some sort of. I feel like this is just like Sakurai making good on some deal he had back in the day. Like, hey, remember when I was sequestered for 2 or 3 years making that Smash Brothers game, and I said that if I do this, I'm going to come out of retirement one day and make a new Air Riders game just to spite you? Yeah, I'm cashing that one in right now.
That's today, bitch. We're making Air Riders.
We're making Air Riders, bitch.
Look, it's one of these things where it's probably a relatively rare case, I've got to think, where it's like, you've got a game here that I don't know whether it's going to be some enormously expensive game to make the way that some can be these days, but relative to most of the stuff that Nintendo publishes, it's probably going to be an expensive game, with a sort of prize position in the launch lineup that is driven by what the developer actually wants to make, rather than just putting this franchise sells this many, so we must put out another edition in it. which, yeah, I mean, look, Kirby as a character is enormously successful, and goodness knows how many games there've been, but this particular offshoot is, a bit of a strange one. So, it's kind of vaguely comforting in a way that something like this can happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn out to be something that will be enormously enjoyable to a wide swath of players, or indeed to myself personally. But sort of the notion of it is kind of, like I said, reassuring in a peculiar way.
Yeah, I like that concept, Greg. I mean, maybe I feel the way about this game that I do about a new Wes Anderson movie. Like, that's probably not for me, but I love that he gets to make those, like I love that something this idiosyncratic can find adequate success and can continue to happen. Like my very, very limited sense memories of playing Kirby Air Ride are that it controls really strangely. It feels slippery and confusing, and watching the direct within like 30 seconds of seeing actual gameplay, I thought, this is reminding me of playing the original game it's bringing back things that I think I might have suppressed about that game. And then there's something, I mean, this is ostensibly a racing game, although the City Trial seems to be not very much about racing most of the time, but the whatever the core like track based gameplay is effectively a race. And I'm watching it thinking it's so herky jerky because your main interaction is either just steering or braking really hard and then boosting even harder back up to, beyond your previous speed. And so for a racing game, it just feels like you're going fast and you're going slow. And it's like your speed is changing very rapidly, very frequently, in a way that I think just doesn't, there's something visceral about it that I don't like, even just watching it. And I don't think I would like playing that. I will say I certainly hope they'll do a demo, because that would, assuage these kinds of concerns. And I would love to get my hands on it and just feel what this is really like. But it doesn't look like it feels good to play for me. So this is probably a no for me, but it sure is.
Yeah, it doesn't look to me like it has a whole lot of depth. It looks like it is a single gameplay element, which is sort of the slingshotting around corners, kind of stretched out to stretched out to its maximum, wrapped around a bunch of different game modes. It just seems very, very much hooked on, this is fast and it feels good to boost around corners, or stretch out and then boost and slingshot yourself through a corner.
And if that feels really good, maybe you can build a game around that.
Yeah.
But also, the ability to, there is a very Smash Brothers like sense of, there's no for glory here. This is just chaos shit happening all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, you saw in the demo, he talked about the super moves. He's coming through just swinging a sword wildly, the full width of the track as he's coming around the corner, just hitting everything and anything in his way. There is something in here that feels like it's for sickos like me who played Smash Brothers with only things that explode, but turned on the highest setting and low gravity, because fuck it, I want to see everything go wrong all the time. Get stock out of here. That's lame. I want 5 minutes of suffering. I want 5 minutes of just
our dealer's choice
explosions.
Smash Brothers tournament games, right? Where we got
those
to choose
worked
our own
until
rules.
I ran into the trader here, and we had problems.
It's just, what can you say? Just the Yoshi's upward tail flick. It was the ultimate counter to that thing that you had going on, because it was easy to go and get you in the air.
It worked twice on people who were like, "That's the most sick shit I've ever seen," and I'm like, "Bro, that's not even the sickest weapon I've got queued up for this. You don't even know." For those who don't remember, the idea was teams were able to just pick whatever configuration they wanted, and then they would
home field advantage in the form of rules.
So whenever I had it, my rule set was items on high, but the only item was the clock that slows everything down, the stopwatch. Yeah. And I did it as Jigglypuff because I got really good at Jigglypuff's down B and triggering the big hit you get for like a very tiny window.
Yeah.
And so
again, you can get them if you get them in the air. They're gone. There's the launch distance is such that there's no chance of them surviving.
So I would fly up and grab it because that one always descended from the top of the screen. It didn't appear. I would fly up and grab it and then down B the shit out of them. It's just mean. Just an absolutely mean way of... No good games were played under that rule set.
Whereas the thing is, it fits with Yoshi. Yoshi's a good counter because a lot of the time, that's one of the easiest ways you can get people out is go up and get them.
Right.
If they're light. And of course, Jigglypuff's really light.
Oh, yeah. So it was really just who got the first stopwatch, because that was it. It was over at that point.
Sure, yeah, that was a lot of it, because you're pretty helpless while you're trapped in that slow-mo state while the other person isn't. But in terms of, have we each got an answer for the, basically if it's if we have like Kid Icarus Uprising again, but it's something different this time, a different Nintendo franchise. For me, sure. I do feel like it should be whatever he wants to do, and obviously he wanted to do this, and then if he wanted to do something after this, whatever it is, I'd say he's earned it. But for me, there's a little bit of overlap with, I guess, the on-foot elements of Kid Icarus, you could say, but it's still a lot about range. A character action kind of game, like Bayonetta or, Ninja Gaiden, that kind of thing. I think could be interested in terms of maybe, like I said, there's a certain amount of overlap with things he's done in the past, Smash Brothers, kind of fighting. And, like I said, Kid Icarus, when you're on foot, is kind of a third-person action game. But, bring it all close quarters and just, what kind of, those particular ways he has of giving the action, that kind of, presumably be a much more kind of cartoony thing than, a lot of those games have been, right? Because generally they are like, you think of Ninja Gaiden, it's got to go, especially, I think it is, the Xbox before the Sigma versions or whatever on Sony, like they were quite gory and bloody and stuff, and then Bayonetta, it's all very over the top. It's still kind of over the top, but it is a different way here with that kind of Smash Brothers particular kind of kind of comic book action could be really amusing, but I don't have a great sort of franchise for it. I mean, I don't know, maybe, God forbid, maybe even an original character might be best.
What I'm hearing is you want Sakurai to make Dynasty Warriors, but with King Day-to-Day.
Well, I mean, he could do it. I think he could definitely do the whole, clearing out the hordes over. I mean, that's the thing. There's been so many of those with various, other video game franchises. You're thinking like Dragon Quest, but then on the other hand, like licenses like Gundam. Considering how licensed out Kirby is, especially in Japan, like you think all the stuff that people kind of have griped about Nintendo not doing with their own stuff, being precious about licensing out their own stuff over the years. They've, HAL has done that with Kirby in Japan. All the soundtracks you could ever want, cafes and, animes and all this different stuff. So I'm kind of surprised that Kirby Muso hasn't happened in a way. Yeah.
So when I wrote my Muso recommendations, my very non-serious ones, that one was on the cut list. That I had like
you incepted it in my brain, James.
I had like 17 games. I'm like, okay, this could be. And then it was I just had a list of how many jokes I could come up with before I tried to write the article. And I think I only had like 5. And I'm like, I got to punch out. The only one I started and never could finish was Excite Warriors, where it was just Excite Trucks. Or as I promises a future where all non-MP3 music is available.
But if you make it Excite Bots, then you have all the giant hamburgers.
Oh, it was the whole thing. There was going to be bikes. It was the whole. I mean, just the whole 9 yards. But I was like, okay, this is too weird for me, and I just finished writing about F-Zero Warriors. Like, it's too much. I can't go there. Everybody 1-2 Switch Warriors was fine. This is too far. But him doing a Warriors game.
I think you've hit it. Showpony character action game.
Oh God.
It is almost exactly like Bayonetta, but it's the camera spinning around Horace's groin.
Hold on, let me write that down for a title.
Also, Horace Showpony's clothes are made up entirely of his mane and his tail.
Oh yeah, that's it. They're pretty much just they've collaborated enough with Platinum Games at this point that they can say, well, we're basically just going to steal your game, but put highly marketable character Horace Showpony in its place.
I like that. I'm not even responsible for this Horace Showpony. The Horace Showpony mind rot. I did invoke him slightly.
You said everybody want to switch.
I did.
That's basically the bit in Pee-wee's Playhouse where everyone goes mental, isn't it?
If you search, it's the secret word. If you search for Horace Showpony, I am still the number 1 Google result. I'm thrilled about this for this incredibly psychotic article. For a while, their dumbass AI read my article as if it was serious and described him to you based on its content.
It's beautiful.
I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. It's time to call it quits. So I was originally toying with an idea, a game that John and I both have great affection for. But I feel like we would need to have the relevant creator in place of a Sakurai-driven Odama project. Mm-hmm. I think the challenge is that Yute Saito is enough of a crazy person that introducing another person with a different set of weird character traits might not make the game. I'm just going to say it might not cause a successful development cycle. That there might be too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen of maniac ideas. So I had to put that one aside. Although I would love to understand if when Nintendo was doing those developer interviews, I would love for them to put those two in a room, and Sakurai's job is to ask Yute Saito about Odama. Or literally anything Yute Saito's ever made. Because
I feel like Sakurai would just be fascinated with Yute Saito.
Oh yeah, none of it's normal. Like there's nothing normal in the Yute Saito library.
It would be sort of like a scientist talking to an alien.
So tell me, why did you give up the DK bongo drums? Well, you see, and he would have one sitting in front of him in the picture. Mm-hmm. They would be explaining it to each other. It would be completely inscrutable to all other humans.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was funny about the Direct was how Sakurai was sitting there saying how his own game felt great.
Yeah,
it's not his game, and like he'd never played it before. Oh boy, this game feels great. Yeah, I guess you would say that you made it.
Maybe he didn't. Maybe this is his first time seeing it. Maybe this is all an elaborate act.
Yeah, or I guess this is one of his multiple personalities.
Did I hallucinate this, or is there a title card that just said "so" with an ellipses?
Yes.
Cappy is here, man. Cappy is here.
Sakurai needs an editor.
Don't worry about it.
Comma, that's not himself, period.
Like, the best thing about this Direct was Sakurai. 100%.
Oh, it always.
Oh, he's very entertaining.
He's talked about in the past he likes to edit his own Directs, and I'm like, no!
like there's just so many things. Like, it's
Can't be
the previous Air Riders game. The previous Air Riders game had one button. This one has two, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I missed the somewhat more candid feel of some of the Smash DLC Directs where he had like what sounded like a couple of people behind the camera like giggling at his jokes.
Especially when the jokes were bad, and you could tell they were giggling because they were bad.
They're more giggling at their rubbish rather than their good.
I don't know if this would be the differentiator there, Greg, but with the Smash DLC, he's showing off this stuff largely to people who've already paid for it. And that is certainly not the case with Kirby Air Riders. I think he would like very much for you to take this game seriously and buy it, and that was his job.
It should be a different kind of presentation. Arguably quite a lot more different than it actually was.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, our game has button presses. Does not imply serious video game. What can I say? Unfortunately, you will have to input your what you want to happen into the game. We could not solve this problem. So, setting aside the prospect of Yute Saito and Sakurai being in a room and causing some kind of singularity.
Yeah, that's not your answer to the question.
No. It's not fair. It's not fair to Yute Saito. He deserves the opportunity to come up with his maniac idea. I think the answer is I want to see Sakurai be given the reins of Wrecking Crew. Because what is Wrecking Crew in the year of our Lord 2025? Like this goes back to the Kid Icarus question. What was Kid Icarus when that game came out? 15, 20 years on from the last time we had seen it. Like, the last time we had seen it was of Myths and Monsters, which is a not very good Game Boy game. Like, so what was it?
It's almost a remake of the NES game. There's some changes that make it better. A bit more approachable, kind of, sand off some of the edges for, portable play, presumably younger players, that audience on the Game Boy at the time, but it's not that much of a different game. So you had a lot of blanks to fill in, and he filled it in quite an interesting way, where it's almost two different genres, rail shooter and then that kind of third person action game, but like I said, different from what I was talking about, where it's much more still about range, and of course the very particular control scheme with the the touchscreen stuff. So it would have been very difficult to guess that Kid Icarus would have ended up being that just off the top of the head. So Wrecking Crew, I guess it's slightly more defined in a weird way.
I mean, slightly, but the last time there was an actual Wrecking Crew game was 1998, and that was Japan only. And we got it on the Nintendo Switch.
It's online. On NSO, yeah. It's kind of feels much more like it's actually kind of being made to conform more towards like the sort of falling puzzle kind of genre, which Sakurai did, of course, work in with Meteos.
Yep, that was part of my thinking. But now you can say, all right, so all you have is there's some degree of puzzly stuff, and Mario has a hammer and he needs to break things. You can do whatever you want. Now, could I predict what Sakurai would do with that canvas? Absolutely not. My brain is not broken enough to come up with whatever ideas he would ideate and spray across the canvas like a modern art piece. But I know for sure that when he presents them, at least 3 times, I am going to make an audible sound of utter confusion. And that's all I want. I want to have a direct while I'm in like the mid, because this one happened like right in the middle of my morning stand-ups. That's just playing in a corner in one ear while I'm trying to pay attention to somebody talking about something that they've been talking about for the last 3 days because they're not making any progress on it. And I just audibly go, huh? Because I get distracted just enough to have like a mental shutdown of like, did you, what? What did you say, sir? And have this like moment of, all right, brain, catch up. He just said buttons are unfortunate. What does that mean? What is it? Oh God, he's talking about the fact this is a 1-button game. Oh geez. Oh, there's 2 buttons. Oh God. That with Wrecking Crew, like there's no limit. Like what dumb, I mean, already Wrecking Crew 98, in the end, you end up knocking down Bowser's castle. Like that's the last thing you break. What if he just lets you tour around and it's like, famous buildings. We're going to knock those down too, because who cares? I'm going to do weird stuff. Here's some power-ups that are all over the map. What's he going to do with mouse controls? I was stunned we didn't see the mouse controls. Yeah, I was like, This is Sakurai. He's going to do weird shit with the mouse controls. What's it going to be? And he didn't. He definitely would do weird shit with Wrecking Crew and the mouse controls. There's no way.
I feel that could be something that's lurking for a subsequent info.
That's true. It
release.
Just shows up one day.
It could be kind of a sub mode or something.
This is the man who sold a 3DS app, so you could use the 3DS to be a controller for your Wii U version of Smash Brothers.
If you're that wedded to it, if you're like, look, I've played only on 3DS. Because I don't own a Wii U, I'm not that unusual. But now I'm around my unusual Wii U owning friend's house, And I don't want any of his controllers.
No.
I want to use what I normally use. I'm going to pay for this app to do it.
Like, even if you owned the 3DS game, you still had to buy the stupid Wii U control. Like, who in their right mind's like, you know what I want to control Smash Brothers with? On my Wii U? A 3DS. Like, the use case is so nonsensical that it feels like a Mad Lib invented it. And you're just
the idea at the time was that there were so many more 3DSs that would be the primary platform for a lot of people to own Smash Brothers on. And so that when they went to their weird friend's house who actually did own a Wii U, you could say, well, this is how I have the feel already. Like, my hands know what to do on the 3DS.
I guess.
And it's already in my pocket. So I can just, if you don't own enough controllers, I've got it ready to go.
But why did they charge for it?
I thought you could use the 3DS version to
maybe you could
play
maybe
into
they
the Wii
put
U
that.
I think it was cheap. It was like $1 or something.
It was.
I feel like they didn't charge a lot. Let's be clear about that. But
no.
it equally, I can only imagine, didn't have to charge that.
No, they owned the platform it was releasing on. They could have charged nothing. But it's one of those things where, like, the price being $1 actually makes it more inscrutable than it having a price at all. Because you sit there going, like, but why $1? What?
Yeah,
It's so nominal. What did you do? Why did you do this? Yes.
Since it came up earlier, my pick for the question here is pretty boring, but it's Meteos. Sakurai made Meteos. It is one of my favorite puzzle games ever, one of my absolute favorite Nintendo DS games, and that's saying a lot. And it did get a sequel that Sakurai was not involved in, the Disney Meteos, which turned the DS sideways into book mode and is not nearly as good. So you gotta be able to send your stuff up to the other screen, or at least to another section of the screen. And I just thought Meteos is an idea that's worth revisiting, and I would love to see him blow it up and make it bigger and do it on modern hardware and find some weird way to control it. And frankly, that would be probably a good choice for mouse controls. So I think it would make a lot of sense. I don't know who owns Meteos at this point. It was not a Nintendo owned game at the time.
No.
So maybe that's easier said than done. But yeah, if I had my druthers, that's my favorite thing other than Smash that he ever did.
I would assume it's Q Games because they released it and Lumines basically at the same time.
Yeah, that's Mizuguchi's company. Right?
Yeah,
so because there's the Dylan Cuthbert Q Games, but is it Q Entertainment?
Q Entertainment, Q Entertainment.
This is decades old since I really thought about it.
Because Mizuguchi is I think he's listed as the producer of Meteos, but yeah, it's
then there's who did the publishing in different territories and how that might affect things.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's Nintendo everywhere except Japan, and I think it's Bandai in Japan. So like basically a team that Nintendo works with all the time. So like it's probably a solvable
including
problem.
On this game.
Yes.
They're running it back in terms of that partnership that gave the Smash Brothers.
There was a story about a year ago now that said that there's like a team at Namco Bandai Namco Bandai, depending on how you want to word it. Bando Namco.
That sounds like a Star Wars character.
It does. You're right. The first time you find out his name is when his action figure comes out. There's like a team that just works on Nintendo projects. I feel like they could just say it's the team that works on Sakurai's projects. Mm-hmm. It's just this is the team that works with Sakurai's Sora Limited Shell Company. That's it.
He keeps
That's all they
busy.
do. I would. Meteos is a good call. I just wonder, like, is there enough opportunity to make bad menus?
He really
plenty.
has only
Meteos
worked on
has...
Kirby and Smash Brothers. That's really all he's done
for a long time. Yeah,
that's crazy. Meteos is the only outlier.
Yeah, he had it had a ton of different modes and features, so you could definitely have some wacky, overcomplicated menus. Nested menus, the whole thing. I mean, there was a lot of meta because as you cleared blocks and launched them up like rockets off the screen, I think you would collect those materials and then you could invest them, or so it kept track of all the different materials and you were contributing them towards some grander total. I don't remember all the details, but it had some things that made you want to keep playing, like it had that meta layer to it that a lot of Sakurai games do. And I think the fact that both Meteos games are stuck on the DS and not likely to get ported to more modern platforms is a strong case for them to just make a new one, kind of like they're doing with Luminous, and so I really hope it is Mizuguchi's company. It's not called Q Entertainment anymore. They changed the name. I can't think of off the top of my head. But they made Tetris Forever, and they're doing they did Res Infinite, and now they're doing the new Luminous, and Mark McDonald works there, the old EGM guy, not old, but from the old days of EGM and 1UP. And I think if they have the rights to Meteos, maybe they could make this happen someday, because it is deserving of a new game. And I think to be updated with modern technology, there's a lot you could do, especially the stuff they're doing lately with, syncing up these classic puzzle games with all of Mizuguchi's kind of music. I mean, that would be excellent to see Meteos updated with that sort of approach. They could do a VR mode. That would be awesome.
How many hours of music would Sakurai demand to be in this new version of Meteos?
That might be an incompatibility between his approach and that studio, because
this game is like 3 times the file size of Donkey Kong Bonanza. There's something very weird going on inside this game's file storage. Like that, because it's up on the website now, because you can pre-order, so you can see how big it is. And it's like, wait, why is it 23 gigs when Bonanza's like 8? What? The fuck did you put
Kirby
in this?
Air Rider's music is already in the Nintendo Music app.
Yeah, they released it like an hour after the Direct. It was already in there, which is a change for the Music app, because recently it's been more involved in like promoting stuff coming up, whereas previously it felt like it was stridently involved in not promoting whatever is going on right now.
It's promoting black box Famicom games that were never localized.
It was like 800 black box songs, and like most of them were less than 3 seconds. It's like, who wants this? I actually fired up the black box library and just let it play for a while, just to see how long I could take it. And the answer was not very.
No, a lot of that stuff is grating.
It was like 12 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I've had enough.
Except Clue Land has great music, I'll say. I mean, there are a few of those games they do have pretty great music.
I was trying to figure out after John's comment, which Kirby games he worked on, and I saw the list, and his role on Crystal Shards, a 64 game, is odd. I did not realize that on that and Smash Brothers 64, he's the voice of DDD. And that is his entire involvement in Crystal Shards. What the fuck is going? He's got the weirdest career.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this other game that's listed here, this Kuchu Ouija Musha King, and it's a fighting game with beetles.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about that in his YouTube channel, if you've ever seen Leo, because he was doing that for a bit, and it was like kind of mobile. Yeah, a beetle battler thing. I have seen the video on that. It was kind of interesting, but it's been a few years. I can't remember very many of the details. But and again, for the record, the game concepts, which is what he called that sort of particular thread of videos that he made, where he was talking about his experiences. Working on the various games. A lot of them are Kirby games, obviously, but the Smash Brothers games and Meteos are a feature and all that. The game concepts video on the original Kirby Air Ride is under 7 minutes. Make of that what you will.
Wow,
40 minutes.
I mean, he did
40 minutes shorter than the Direct for Air Riders.
That's true. He did mention. In the Direct, if you watch the videos on my YouTube page, I talked about I had just pitched an idea and couldn't talk about it anymore. It was this. It's like, what are you going on about? If you've ever actually watched those YouTube videos, the editing of them is in character with this Direct. Like, he had a hand in editing all of this, and he shouldn't have. Is my follow up to that sentence. Could we get him to make the new King of Swing? Donkey Kong's having a moment. Can we get Sakurai's take on DK King of Swing? I feel like with the mouse controls, like we're getting here. We could have Rock and Roll Climber Mark II.
I'm surprised that you didn't, given I know your intense affection for the world and characters of this particular series.
Oh, no.
When I was talking about doing a character action game, I'm surprised you didn't suggest to make it an F-Zero one where we finally could perform a Falcon Punch in a non-Smash Brothers setting. I think now we're on to... You imagine Falcon Punch and all the other pillocks from F-Zero. It'd be incredible.
You're not wrong. I don't know.
Like which time's happening as well. It's still called which time.
The game would be awful, but you're not wrong. This is one of the prime examples of me looking at a concept of a game and saying, this is going to be terrible. I need to play it. I would immediately have that response of, this is going to be dreadful. Please procure me a copy as soon as we can get a hold of it. I'm just thinking about, but like, oh fuck! Now you got me excited. You got me excited for a future I'll never have. Of what if there's like a mini game, like, because he jams mini games and weird modes and all kinds of stuff into his content. What if there's just like, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the board game Operation, where you have to remove things without touching the side from a model of a person, his nose lights up if you touch the side of it. What if it was like just that, but you're repairing Mr. EAD? You're just pulling things out of him that don't belong there using the mouse controls. That's so deeply in his wheelhouse of weird, stupid shit that you're kind of not wrong. I mean, it's a very wrong idea, but it does go with my my ethos, which is Nintendo should announce the next F-Zero product as a new direction for the F-Zero franchise, and then it not be a racing game. Be anything else.
No, that's the thing. It's burned racing game. We've had the Falling Block Puzzler.
Yeah.
We've had platformers. We've had, some sort of fighting game. But Kirby has taken his opportunity at sort of reinventing the racing genre, shall we say? So it's the only logical the next step is to disassemble Mr. EAD with motion control
or mouse controls. These are all very dumb. I appreciate them. Does anybody else have any dumb ideas to contribute? Otherwise, we're going to take a break. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to do other stuff. We had a lot of things on the docket we could do, so we'll figure out what we're going to do during the break. So stay tuned. We are back. We're going to kind of buffet style this episode. We're not going to have like discrete segments. So, hey, Future James, when you're editing this is your own fucking fault when you have to figure out what the chapter times are. Sorry. The timing of Jonny reaching out to do an episode is somewhat fortuitous because we got an email, and they're both kind of spawned by the 10-year anniversary. But we got an email about a week ago from PPKO. And since I read the last email, I'm going to drop it in the chat. And John, I'll have you read it, if you don't mind. If I can get the chat up. There we go.
I do not. Let me just bring up the chat.
I have dropped it in there.
All right. This is okay. So, PPKO writes, "My dudes, here's a funny little thing I like to do. Betwixt each new RFN episode, I like to go back and listen to the latest 10-year-old one. I just reached Dr. Jonathan Metz's last episode as host, which might have had the best stinger of all time involving John's defecating cat."
I remember this one.
It does not surprise me at all. So I got to relive that emotional moment. But I was also reminded of the good doctor's declaration that he will be documenting the history of NWR in book form, with the goal of having it ready in about 2 years. I wasn't able to find any evidence of its existence, and I'm curious what became of that. Is it still in development, or was it a lost cause? James, congrats on a decade, all caps, of hosting RFN, and its absolute A-team of a cast. Keep up the great walk, guys. Number 1 Gee Stan, PPKO. P.S. Bring back the Stingers.
I'm very confused by the last sentence. I'm not sure if this is like thanks for the snow. If this is the new thanks for the snow. But Stingers only happen because we edit the episode, and Guillaume and I have taken a much more laissez-faire approach to editing the episode. So there's really no Stinger content to have. It's just still in the episode.
Oops, all Stingers.
Yeah, essentially. So the book, Jonny, we talked about it. You and I have talked about it. I remember us talking about it probably about 5 years ago. And one of the things being, it's really hard to write a book.
Well, yeah. Thank you for asking, PPKO. And you are all owed an update on the book, I suppose. There's not a lot to say, I'm afraid. I mean, I certainly meant it when I said it at the time. And by the way, that episode, my last one was 439, Adam Tier episode title, and we covered Blaster Master. Had a retroactive on Blaster Master, which was great. But really, I think tonight we're here to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of episode 440, Indefatigable podcast. So I want to point people to those if they want to experience the transition between season 4 and season 5 for themselves. And of course, Greg's triumphant return to the show on 440, which was a little bit of a surprise for me, a really wonderful one. I think maybe James had mentioned it to me a few days ahead of time, that he thought he could convince Greg to come back. And I was like, perfect. That's awesome. And so 440 is I guess this is a bit of a tangent, but listening to episode 440 is an unforgettable experience for me. I was hiking a mountain outside of Las Vegas, where I was living at the time, not for much longer. But I was hiking this mountain sort of to get away from the heat, which was very effective. And I remember scaling the side of this mountain, listening to you guys. And I think James was talking about the Uncharted Waters or Dark Waters, the game where you sort of sail around the ocean and yes! map it out, and very, very strange sounding game. But I just remember thinking I loved that you guys kind of reformatted things and started new traditions right off the bat and sort of made it your own. And I just remember smiling and thinking to myself, they're going to be okay. They're going to make this work. And realizing that now I get to be a fan of the show, and I don't know what's going to be on it, and I don't know what's going to happen when I listen to it. And that's an experience I had not had for many years. So pretty great memory of mine. Just getting to be on the other side of it and listen to you guys do it. And then of course continue listening for 10 more years, plus. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, there's a weird, listening to that episode, because I have listened to it relatively recently. There is, me trying things to go, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Originally, I was like, what if I just alliterated the opening of every episode and then just, worked my way through the alphabet? I'm like, cool, that's a great bit for, half a year. Then what, idiot? And I'm like, it's actually a lot of work. I'm not going to do that. That's a lot of work for a joke that runs out very quickly. I don't want to do that. It's just punching out of that joke altogether away.
You were smart to approach the new era of the show from a structural perspective, because maybe I had some influence on that, but I was very influenced by a podcast called Film Spotting, which is still around. They're celebrating 20 years this year. So they're still doing it, and they're still doing it in very much the same way that they were back when I discovered it in the mid 2000s, which was, when I was sort of learning about podcasts. And they did a weekly show, which a lot of other people couldn't pull off. And I really liked the sort of regimented approach that they took, and they would deviate from it when they needed to, but there was sort of a default come back to the center, home keys kind of approach. We do this piece and then we do this piece and then we do this piece, and we have transitions and we play the same music each time, and it centers you, and it it produces a certain like expectation and rhythm when you're listening to it. And what I found is that when you're producing a podcast, it has similar effects to making the podcast. It kind of helps everybody get their head in the game. It helps you have some loose feel for what's happening next, and have we covered the things that we wanted to cover, and it helps you manage the length of the segments to a degree. And I like having interstitial stuff, like, we would do skits, or we would do the Nintendo Shop channel. What was the Wii Shop channel minute, or whatever you called it? We had all these different things we were trying. But I like the idea.
Just read it.
But I like and this goes back to really old days of like writing newsletters for my original website, The Informant, and at some point I think I was doing something like that for Planet GameCube as well, where I liked having sort of a template that was like basic, and but something where every time I came to it and I needed to produce one of those, I had a guide for myself and I could kind of fill in the blanks. And then most of the fun and most of the work would be in making it not look like I had just filled in a bunch of blanks. Like I would twist it around, or I would add jokes in, or I would try to do transitions and all these things. And so I kind of took that approach to podcasting, and I loved seeing that you were able to get some mileage out of that as well after I was gone. Cause we were both, James and I, we were both worried about what was the show going to be like, and will it make sense? And, will you be able to find your own collective voice again, a different, slightly different version, of what the show would be.
Yeah. Is it going to be too silly? Like, there was a real thought of like, okay, my job at times was just to like, all right, Johnny's been going on for a long time. Let me just firebomb this segment real quick. All right, there we go. Hey, Johnny, let me tell you about Wappy Dog. It's like, this is a setup.
Tell me about Wappy Dog, James.
We've been too serious for 3 weeks. I arranged with John to have Wappy Dog and Babysitting Mama. We're going to fuck this show up real good.
Man, Babysitting Mama, I forgot about that.
That's still my icon.
Blissfully forgot about it.
That's still your icon.
Do you remember the video from E3 where I'm holding the baby from Babysitting Mama, and I say, this one's for James Jones? Oh.
Yes. That whole setup was just like, okay, the show's been kind of dry the last few weeks. We need to set it on fire. And so like that was just, I can't do that now. I can't just like, there was a fear of like, can I just walk into the show one week and be like, we've been boring for 3 weeks. I'm going to fuck this shit up for a little bit. And the answer is, yeah, actually I can. I can still do that. I have to do it differently. I can't surprise the host with what I'm going to talk about anymore because I'm the host. I can't be like, this idiot doesn't know I'm going to talk about the stupid weird trap game on PS3 that I'm pretty sure is actually a way for a Konami member to write his fetish game. But no, Deception's not coming to the show as a surprise anymore. But there's opportunity. There's chances to like make it work. And yeah, it was just figuring it out. And like there's enough types of humor on the show that I think help. Cause like I think that's I explained this to a marketer who I have worked with in a professional setting.
Paul?
Yeah, kinda. Where they were talking about, and I can't talk about the industry I work in because it would be pretty easy to figure out what company I work in at that point. They get all pissy about it. They talk a lot about the product space we work in, like the industry. And we have a division of the company that just collects consumer data about the products in that space. And they're really fucking good at it. They are super good at it. And they do lots of detailed write-ups. They collect lab data. They collect, emotional, like resonance data. How do people feel about the products? And then they collect actual, like, how do they feel about using the products? Like versus how does it appeal to them emotionally versus like what do they think the product's quality is? These are people who don't have it versus how do they perceive it when they do. So like, there's all that kind of stuff going on. They're really good at that information. And one of the people who works there described the idea of what if we had auto-generated podcasts that reviewed the content based on the content, and we would just generate personality voices. That's the worst idea I've ever heard. Because like people don't listen to podcasts for the content. Not really. It's important.
The personality.
But they listen to the podcasts because they like the hosts, because they connect with them. Yeah, it's about there's like I had a little running gag for a while where I was referring to this as the only Nintendo podcast because it was so obviously manifestly a lie. It just felt like it was fun to say. But functionally, actually I think I call it the most important Nintendo podcast, which is an even more insane statement. But the general gist of why you pick one versus another is you like the people in it, or you resonate with the way that they do things, or you find some degree of like maybe their opinions mesh with yours, maybe they maybe how they present things is fun for you, maybe you just did like the back and forth. Like this at times is a podcast that happens to sometimes talk about Nintendo, and that's fine. But like the idea of just like we're gonna auto generate a host he's got a persona. He's Rick. He likes fast cars, fast living, and fast sports. And I'm like, that sounds terrible. That sounds horrendous. Don't do that. I think I got the point across. I may have gotten the point across in a way that hurt everyone in the room's feelings, but sometimes it's necessary.
you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right?
Yeah. I think the group that we have and is good for that. Like there's enough mix of personality types that we're able to play off each other. Like the episodes that have John here versus episodes that don't really change in the amount of words that get said. Because John's a man of few words, preferably few. Preferably fewer.
But it depends. It really depends on the game you're talking about. It depends on
the fridge you're talking about that day.
It depends on the amount of Kirby content that is in the podcast. Definitely.
How many things have been shaped like an Xbox in the marketplace in the last 6 months? Well, that's going to really drive some content.
The one thing I did laugh at though in the first part of this podcast is Jonny, true to his podcast hosting roots and trying to get everybody involved, did actually realize that I pretty much not said a word for probably about a good 45 minutes, and he tries to redirect the conversation in my direction, to which I say, I have nothing to add because
we've been there
hate
before.
Kirby, but I appreciated it, Jonny.
It's an old dance we like to do.
I see the effort, and old habits die hard. I know.
I had to hold my tongue because I was about to start laughing about it because I knew what John's response was going to be, which is like, oh, it looks like some Kirby stuff. And I was like, here it comes.
Yep. But there you go. It's good to know that just things are as they always have been. It's good.
But it works because, like, the show works because, yes, people had to change their roles a little bit. But, Greg fills in very nicely at providing a counterbalance to when John and I are leaning the show into some asinine direction that really needs to be dealt with, while Guillaume is grumbling disgruntledly at what he's going to have to edit later in the week. There's a clip that I put in the episode. So I edited the last 3 episodes. There's a clip for the last one I edited that Guillaume was on, where the clip explicitly ends with Guillaume making a disappointed noise in us because I thought it was so much funnier as a punchline.
Especially since he wasn't editing that week.
But we all enjoy what we're doing, and we enjoy we'll take shots at each other. We'll make jokes. We have enough memes to fill a book. Pun not relevant, not intended here. But it just feels more like a conversation, and that works out really well, and it makes the show more listenable, I think.
I should actually answer the question about the book. So something I was very serious about for a good while, probably at least a year or two. I was thinking about it often. I was working on it. And to be honest, I never did much writing at all. That was not the order. My concept for it was to do all these interviews. and publish them as podcasts, and then use that as part of the reference material to write the book, and that way I would get not just my perspective on, the history of the website, especially in the old days, but get a lot of other people's perspectives and produce a much more well-rounded, much more complete kind of a narrative about what we did and what was it like back then, and who were all the people. I mean, the people were really the main reason to want to do the book, because with dozens of just incredible people. Of course, you guys here on the podcast, and Guy, certainly easily among them. But I just thought, like, what an incredible organization this is. Nintendo World Report, and all the different things that encompasses now, YouTube channels and podcasts and social media accounts and forums and lots of other things, and a lot of great writing, a lot of great news coverage and reviews and everything else. So I just thought that was, and I still think that would be the right lens to do it through. And my feeling was, I would start with the interviews for those reasons, and also because at that point I had been doing a lot more audio work than I had writing for the website for many years at that point. And I just thought that would be a nice transition, and a nice way for me to kind of get my podcasting fix without having to be on a strict schedule all the time, and without having to, it would just be different, it'd be kind of a fresh activity, and a chance for me to reconnect with old friends and have like really in-depth conversations that I had wanted to have for a long time. And I did some of those. So if you're only listening to the numbered RFN episodes, I don't know if you haven't gotten to those yet, or maybe I don't know how you would find them now. They're certainly still available somewhere on the website and maybe on the RSS feed. So I would encourage you to find those. I did a handful, like maybe 4, 5, 6 of those interviews, and I think they're really good. I mean, the people I talked to are incredible. People like Max Lake and Rob Stevens, aka Rick Powers, just wonderful stuff. And I thought I'll also say they're very intense interviews for me, and I think for the people I was talking to, pretty intense, old memories, big emotions, repressed stories, and they caused me a lot of self-reflection, and they reminded me a lot of things that I was regretful about from my youth, from my early days where I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and certainly was not remotely professional, and often not even a very good friend to some of the people I worked with, and asked people to do things, being in charge of the site for some of those years. So it was a fascinating experience for me, and one that I would have liked to have done longer. And my thinking was that the book would use those as, one of the major sources, as well as, my own memories and a lot of writings and old emails and things like that. And I ran into some trouble in that I was having trouble accessing the email archives and having trouble finding some of the old files from like 2001 through 2005, like really old stuff. Even in 2015, 2016, this stuff was really old, and hard to find, hard to access, hard to sift through. It's a mountain of data. Some of it I couldn't get. And I started to appreciate just what an immense undertaking that would be. And it would have taken me years to put it together. And frankly, the amount of research and fact checking, because one thing I started to get kind of sensitive to is like, how do I tell this story in a way that doesn't leave people out, that doesn't minimize anyone's contributions, that is fair to people involved, that tells these wacky old stories in a way that isn't mean or doesn't make fun of someone or doesn't expose something that someone wouldn't want to be exposed. And I started to think about, some of the stuff we did back then was actually pretty embarrassing. And I don't know if everybody would be happy that we churned it back up and dove into the behind the scenes of what was going on with it. I had a lot of doubts about how much people actually would want to read some of that stuff. And what is the size of audience who would really care about this sort of like in-depth detailed reporting on a 20-year-old website, and the people who ran it. And mainly I just think it's like the scope of the project. I could never really get my head around it, and I didn't quite know how to get going on other than to do these interviews. And then even the interviews started to become really difficult. It was very hard to schedule some of this stuff, hard to record it. They took a ton of planning, many hours of planning for each one of those interviews. And it just started to feel like, I was still doing this a year after I left RFN hosting. And I just started to feel like, feels like a burden on my time and my energy and my mental health, in a similar way that the podcast was starting to become, which is one of the reasons that I left it. And so I just started to think maybe this isn't the best idea. And that was a hell of a time in my life too. When I was doing that stuff, I think mainly in 2016 was when I was like actively working on the book. I met my future wife that year. I moved to Texas for the first time and ended up only living there for, about a year. And before that, my last year of being on the show, I was living in Las Vegas. I lived there 10 months or something. So my life was just like really chaotic, and I was careening from one job to the next, and I got laid off a couple of times. I like escaped a company at one point, because I was afraid of what they would do to my career. And I didn't want to get trapped with them. So I had to like eject out of there and find something different. And it was just a really unstable time in my life. So I just eventually decided, I couldn't really devote the time to do it. I didn't want to give up on it entirely, which is probably why I never came out and said, I'm not doing this anymore. I know I said I was going to do it and I'm not going to do it. It was much more of a gradual, organic thing where I just kind of slowly realized I don't really have it in me to keep going back to this and beating my head against the wall. And so I don't think that book's ever going to come out. I mean, never say never, because maybe in 20 years I retire and, the Wayback Machine is still in proper working order, and maybe I can go back and try to make something happen with it. But I don't really have any serious plans for that right now. I will say I'm very glad that those interviews were done and are available somehow, and that you could go back and listen to those. I think they're wonderful. The people I talk to are just some of the greatest, coolest people that I know. They did amazing things for the website, and a lot of them at the time that I spoke with them really had not been involved for a long time. Actually, one of the people I talked to was Justin Nation, who I hadn't heard from in years. And I don't think at that time he had really been doing anything in public with video games. I don't think he had been writing or producing any kind of content, covering video games for a while at that time. And not too long after he and I spoke, he started the Nindies channel, and is still running it. The Switch obviously was a big catalyst for that and gave him a lot of stuff to cover. But Justin has been hitting it hard ever since. And I'm not saying I have any responsibility for that, but that's just a person who was incredibly influential in the early days of the website. And then seemed like he just kind of disappeared and did other stuff for quite a few years, and then eventually came back and has been doing wonderful things for many years now. Not directly affiliated with our website anymore, but I think he's very friendly with it as far as I know. And, you know, I mean, I think he stays in touch a little bit with some of us old heads. So I love that. He's just a great example of the kind of person that I really wanted to highlight and to share a little bit about, you know, these people who inspired me and who certainly by 2015, 2016, I don't think a lot of our podcast audience knew these people and were not very familiar with them. And so I thought it was kind of exciting to bring them back. Carly, you mentioned Carly Jung earlier. She's a person who I've always wished that I had done one of those interviews with, and would be an excellent subject for that. Was one of the most interesting people I've ever met, and contributed vastly to our website for quite a long time. So, anyway, so there are a lot of people who I did not interview who I wanted to. And if I ever go back to that project, I think it would be just to do more of those interviews and try to republish maybe some of the old ones and bring them to a larger audience and maybe do some additional ones too. But you know,
yeah, they're still on the server. I could see them. So like they're
good.
I believe they did get put on the feed. I just can't remember what we called them on the feed. And you might say, well, let's go look in the feed, James. Well, there's like 1,200 individual items on the feed at this point.
I'll say, I think if you search for the phrase book interview,
that might do it.
If you have a way to search an RSS feed that easily, then that might work for you.
I have the RSS feed.
I don't know if most people do, but yeah, that might work.
My thought was I could just give them some dates.
Oh yeah.
Now you'd still have to actually. Yeah, I mean, if you open the feed on the website, it'll just in the browser it'll just show it. Yeah, I refer to them as special NWR book interview. So like, I see one dated on December 8, 2016 with Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I see one from the 4th of September with Rick. I see one with Max Lake, Justin Nation, TYP, and I'm back around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they are on the feed.
There aren't nearly as many of those as I would have needed to write the book. And there aren't nearly as many of them as I wish I could have done. And, you know, what stopped me was just, you know, yet another, spending a lot more time in, you know, being in a relationship. So that takes over parts of your life that you used to do things like, edit podcasts. So, you know, a lot of good reasons. But yeah, I have some regret about the book project, especially telling people about it and not delivering. That sucks. You know, I hate that aspect of it. So I'm sorry. I apologize.
I seem to recall you always were at least cognizant of the fact that there are challenges here that may get in the way.
Yeah, maybe
and that it caged or the discussion of it in like, hey, I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah, and you know, I did try. I really did. But yeah, at some point it just seemed like it was not cool to do it the way I had originally thought. So, you know, maybe one day I can find a way to rescope it all in a way that makes sense. But you know, my life is focused on other things right now, so I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe some of the interviews could come back. I mean, I think that's in the realm of possibility to go back and do some more of those. If I can track people down and get them to talk to me. I'll say my dream was to like culminate all those audio interviews with one with Billy. And to give you a sense of my ambition at the time, I was like giving him a heads up, like, hey, I'd love to do this, you know, it might be a while because I want to talk to other people first. And then that'll kind of help inform what you and I could talk about. Cause I'll hear all these stories from other people, you know, and then I can get your read on them and stuff like that. And he, you know, he was game for it. I mean, this was 10 years ago, you know, he was game for it, but of course it was very much like, you'll have to talk to my boss, you know, you'll have to talk to the corporate people and get their permission. And I never even got that far. I'm not convinced that they would okay that even now. But But I think that would have been really cool to get Billy back and do like an in-depth discussion with him and dive into some of the history and stuff, because he's got stories I don't know. He definitely remembers things that I was not aware of at the time. And, has a obviously a unique perspective on those early days of the website. So it would be awesome. Maybe one day, but I know better than to make promises. At this point, I will say, I mean, I am writing a book. I'm writing a different book that has nothing to do with video games. And it's fiction, and I really don't want to say much about it because I don't know if I'll ever be able to finish it, but I have about probably a half complete, pretty good draft, and an outline that points me to the other things that I want to write to kind of fill it in and finish it. So I've been working on this novel for 6 or 7 years already. So it's going really slowly. And the main reason is because I only get to work on it like once every couple months. And it's fun. I think about it a lot more often than I work on it. But oftentimes it feels like the only time I can really have the time and the focus to sit down and like make progress on it is like when I'm on a plane or something, when I'm just sort of trapped and have, nothing else to really do. That just doesn't, I actually don't fly that often. So, those opportunities don't come up. And I have some time on my calendar on weekends to try to sit down and do something creative, which is often writing on that book. That calendar entry is weekly. And so the fact that I only actually work on the book every couple months maybe gives you a sense of how much I respect my own personal calendar. Often it's like I could do some writing. I could work on the book that I'm still very interested in all these years later, or I could play a game. And a lot of days I don't give much time to play games. So like on the weekend, that's a tough choice, and so I'm often tempted by just being entertained, or I own a house now. So that keeps me very busy with all kinds of stuff I'd not be doing, but I don't have much choice. So, real life stuff gets in the way, but, I do think that I think I will release another book at some point in the future. And it may not be the one that I teased a decade ago, but, it'll be something. And I think it'll be good, by the time I actually finish it. So that's the tough part there, is like persisting and devoting myself to actually do it. But I have made very slow, but pretty steady progress on that book, the novel. Even over all these years, I still think about it often. I still work on it pretty regularly, just not frequently. And I do think that'll come out. I might need a sabbatical from my job at some point to actually finish it, to get it over the finish line. But yeah, I'm very passionate about that idea. So I would really like to see that completed at some point. And my wife is an author, so I get a lot of inspiration and encouragement from her. And so that's another reason for me to be optimistic that I'll actually be able to pull it off at some point.
I actually would be really interested in the podcast series and hearing more of those, because a lot of that stuff was before I was involved with the site beyond just reading it. So like I got a lot out of that from, like, I had no overlap time with most of the interview people. Obviously I interviewed with Wendy because I had to hound him for a goddamn email address. And I spent plenty of time with TYP. But the other two, I had actually never spoken to. I've read their stuff, but that's it. Obviously, I've met Billy. Billy was around E3 at every E3 I went to in some capacity or another. But I never worked for him. Like, there was always, like, I came in pretty much as he was leaving. So I actually got a lot out of those. So understanding like where this site came from. Like I know the outline of the story, but the stuff that happened behind the scenes is always very a unique perspective on how, like, at the time, just to give context, because a lot of our audience isn't old enough to remember this, it was not the idea of a website that was just people who weren't working for a company putting content into a website wasn't that weird. Like a lot of the internet was
ecosystem
hobbyist
of
content.
people doing more or less what we were doing, but most of them aren't here anymore, and our website still is, and I still think
right,
that is part of the appeal of telling that story. It's like, what is it about what we do that worked when other people, they couldn't keep it up, or they sold out to some fly by night internet company that shut down 6 months later or whatever. There's some special sauce to Nintendo World Report, and all the other names it had before that, and the people who work here that have turned out differently than a lot of our peers, including websites that were more popular than us in our heyday. And so I still think there's some magic there to be uncovered and explored a little bit, but mostly it just comes down to the individuals and the way that they work together, and the way that they were motivated. I think that's most of the magic, and I think we still got it. Thinking with a lot of newer people who I don't know. I read the website nowadays and I don't know half the names who write for it, and that's the way it should be. But I think we're still quite good at finding those people who can do it and who bring a lot of passion to it, and that's the main thing you need is just the passion.
There's some very interesting conversations around the John Neal transition timeframe and soon after that I was involved in, because this was in that period of time where I was more involved in the day-to-day of the site, where we're getting to this point of does it make sense to write up every single goddamn news story like we used to? And the answer was immediately no, because we could look at the traffic numbers and see that nobody gives a shit. Like us writing up a news story that Acclaim is teasing they're going to make a comeback, that would get 50 clicks. Nobody cares. But understanding, okay, so what content do we write up? And that was a long conversation. That went on for a really long time. Where does the value of what we present come in? What is it that we do that just getting it from social media doesn't? Mm-hmm. Because that's the thing. That's where people get their news from now, for, I would say, for better or worse, but for worse or worser. And so how do you, what does a site that is driven by written content after the famed pivot to video that was all just an accounting scam, effectively? How do you can Google that. I'm not going to get into too much detail about it. I just get mad when I think about it, how people lost their jobs because of lies. But the idea that how do you, if you're still a written focused site, what content do you write? Sure, you can write reviews, but reviews have a very, to give you how the sausage is made, a very limited shelf life in terms of when do they return clicks. It really is as terrifying as this sounds, the first 3 days before the game comes out and 5 days after. It's a tiny, narrow, frighteningly small window. So what content does it make sense for us with an unpaid staff that's limited, almost all of whom are students? We had a ton of students on the site's history, or have another job. What does it make sense for us to do? There are things that are obvious. Yes, we should probably review Donkey Kong Bonanza, even though Nintendo may or may not have sent us a review copy. We should probably do that. We should probably review Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. It's probably important. But if we're going to cover news, and we had a whole, there was a conversation, John, I think you, Neil, myself, Carly may have been involved at that point. Do we even bother with news at all? Or do we just limit it to this is big news, we can do that. This is not, we can pass on it. And that during E3, that's extra weird. What constitutes? Because the fountain was on, and so there wasn't a lot of time to go is this big news or not?
It became pretty clear over time that people were coming to us. Number one, we had a very select audience coming to us, and number two, they were coming to us for very specific things.
A very elite audience is what John meant.
Only the best.
There.
Very educated, those with discerning tastes in Nintendo coverage.
The cultured, the proletariat versus the vile. All right, so we're bringing in this sort of the plutocrats of the video game conversation. I can't even get that shit out. This is the worst. All right.
The thing is, though, what's crazy is that we did build a very solid community.
Mm-hmm. We did, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Even beyond those people that work on the website, I mean, our community forums, I mean, those guys are like a family.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And like,
that have been on that forum for 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, and
really
it's kind of
crazy.
It's kind of moved to Discord because the death of forums is people just don't.
Right.
People don't like that format anymore. At least that they didn't. At least not in the same level of demand. It's probably an attention span thing. It's like the decreasing. There is like a panic conversation around America's decreasing attention span, but there is some reality to it. And like forums are not a fast moving thing, and so you might post something and then come back 2 days later and someone has responded now. And I just don't think that kind of instant gratification or non-instant gratification, delayed gratification, super delayed gratification. I just don't know that it has the same sort of like resonance for people as like a Discord where you might get a response right away. So I think that has been some of the pivot. What I would say that is also relevant for us was, all right, so we're going to write more opinion stuff. We're going to write more feature stuff. We're going to go after more editorial. We're going to do more reviews. We're going to try to do previews. Do we allow a difference between previews and impressions? Oh, God, that was a whole dumb debate that happened.
I'll give you another, the difference between an editorial and a blog. I fought for a long time to get blogs added as a feature.
When we did
it took
blogs.
so long for us to add blogs to the website that blogs were kind of passé by the time that we could do them. And there was a lot of argument about why do we need this? How is this really different than editorials?
Or a feature.
Yeah. And then we very quickly moved on to microblogging, or, as we now call it, Twitter, Blue Sky, that kind of thing, Threads.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird period of transition where we've had to navigate it. We're still going through it. Like, John Raridan became the site director. He has a lot more video experience than the people who've been running the site did. And the site, I wouldn't say it did a pivot to video, but it certainly invested more in that space. And
which had to happen.
It had to happen. Yeah, like part of it was just money. Like the site costs money to run. It ain't free. And that was that had a YouTube revenue is kind of what it is now, but like it had defined revenue that we could leverage. And then the question is, all right, but what video content do people want now? Do they want long form video? And what the answer is, this is a fun one. People want either 1 hour 90 or 1 hour to 90 minute videos talking about the minutia of the control scheme of like Kid Dracula, or they want 30 seconds. And it's like the middle ground, they're not interested. It's
that's and that's the thing. I have to say that pretty much reflects my viewing habits. On YouTube, I either watch stuff that is like 30 seconds and I get an answer that I wanted, or I sit there and watch a video for an hour.
Yeah, it's so weird. Videos that are 47 minutes long do great. Videos that are 17 minutes long, get the fuck out. Videos that are 47 seconds long, brilliant. It's like, what is this donut hole in attention spans? And the answer is people will start those videos and it becomes sort of like their background helm. It becomes like they're paying it to say 40% attention.
Mm-hmm.
And certain keywords might drag that number to 100%. But it's meant to just kind of play and be sort of like the background of what the other thing they're doing at the time. Or they want like to just jam through 100 fucking YouTube shorts and just get the maximum brain rot. Let's go. I'm gonna freebase dumb memes for the next hour and a half.
That's like YouTube and TikTok mode.
It's two different experiences.
Yeah,
that you're
exactly.
looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very appealing to me. Yeah. But I've never used TikTok. I'm an old man and I don't need that stuff. I'm not interested.
TikTok is the ultimate. Like, I don't use TikTok, and whenever I see somebody else using TikTok, it's so frivolous.
Well, yeah, like you can't.
There's so little substance to TikTok.
There are people
I can't handle it.
There are people who are capable of doing substantive things in that format because they have understood what the format can do, and they've understood how to tailor their message into that format. which requires like writing the message in a very like, it needs to be direct, it needs to be quick, it needs to be attention grabbing, and you need to get in, get out, because you got a limited time to get it done. But the broad spectrum of audience that's in there isn't necessarily looking for that. They want like the quick hit of like set up, punchline, out. And that's fine. We fucking had God, what was Twitter's version of that?
Vine.
Vine.
Vine. They bought Vine and then shut it down.
Yeah, we had Vine. Yes.
Yep.
It wasn't that different. It just didn't have the sort of like industrial scale brain rot that TikTok has. But
it didn't have the time to get there.
Yeah, exactly. But there is a certain amount of just like, hey, like fast content in and out. But it's weird that like that middle space doesn't really do well. So like we had to figure out what we want to do in video. We had to figure out what makes sense to continue to do as text. The site had, I think at its peak, it had like 5 podcasts that were active or semi-active.
I couldn't keep up with them all. I tried for a while.
Which like at one point there was conversation about, should I just take over and set up the bones of a podcast network to try to get those things handled? Because that would help for things like doing ad insert.
And there was definitely a certain amount of time where I know that we were sitting here on RFN kind of saying, like, these other podcasts are pretty much doing what we're doing. Like, are we competing against ourselves?
Yes.
Here?
No, but
it's a conversation that
go back
happened.
to what we were talking about before. It's not the content that's important. It's the personalities. So if you have different people doing a different podcast, it's different enough for the people who want to listen to that podcast, you know?
It was a question to them like, hey guys, we're releasing 2 shows at the same day of the week. Like we definitely shouldn't do that. There should be some degree of structural difference, if only just to reinforce that you're listening to a different show. You're right. The personalities are what drive it. But it wasn't like they felt like they were biting on our space or anything like that, to use a very dated term.
It was just more, do we need 2 podcasts that release on the same day talking about the same news?
Right. Or should we try to
on
specialize?
The same site?
And so like connectivity, which was originally the newscast, like the newscast idea is great until you think about the fact that it becomes instantly dated. Probably faster than you can get it out. And so connectivity became this sort of like variety show podcast where it was just like, there's not really necessarily a standard set of people. It's just like whatever the fuck comes out. And there's going to be segments on it that are going to be produced by maybe a rotating cast of people who may not be the same people. And I thought that was brilliant experiment. Because you can do whatever. Like you can do a segment that has no chance of being good. Has 0 chance. Like this segment is almost certainly going to be an absolute failure, but I don't care. Like whatever. If it fails, it fails. But at that 1% chance that this segment absolutely slays, you can do whatever you want with it. You can blow it out. You can have more of them. You can have less of them. You can expand it. Famicast was very similar. Like they have consistently iterated through ideas of like what kind of content they want to have in the show. And of course, part of that is because the people who run that show are all very creative. And so I will say in at least one case, for better or worse. But they just kept throwing different ideas into the mix, and that allowed them to sort of experiment with ideas and functions. And you get to things where like Ty gives them 4 games that are deeply Japanese, and he made up 3 of them. And I can't figure out which one's real. I'm sitting there going like, what the fuck? These are all way too real. Which one is it? Or these are all way too fake. Weird shit like that, because he has the right kind of brain to come up with this stuff where it's just believable enough where you're like, well, I can't eliminate that one from the list, but just so inscrutable that you're like, well, that's too stupid to be real.
Since we're talking about Ty Sugar, he's one of the people I would love to have done one of those book interviews with, except I don't think we would have actually made it through the whole thing.
Because he would have given it to you in character.
Right. Yeah. Like, it would have been too hard to get like the real history, out of Ty. But I had so much fun hanging out with Ty and Danny and James. I got to see all three of them, although all three separately, unfortunately, when I was in Japan, early last year. And one of the true highlights of the whole trip to Japan was getting to be on the Famicast while I was in Japan, yet weirdly still in my hotel room.
I had the same experience
over Discord or whatever. It's like I'm doing a remote podcast just like I normally would, except I'm just in another country, the same time zone as the other people on the show. And also maybe I can give a little bit of behind the scenes. I was supposed to be on, or at least I was supposed to meet up with the 8-4 guys that week while I was in Japan. And I was probably going to try to weasel my way onto their podcast too, but it ended up being on a bad night of the week and it didn't work out. I was very tempted and I tried to make something happen there. I think it would have been really cool. Cause I'm fans of those guys. I mean, I mentioned Mark McDonald earlier, John Riccardi. I mean, I've been reading those guys since before I ever met Billy Berghammer. So it would have been really cool to go hang out with them and do their show, but it was too much. That trip was pretty packed already, and I couldn't make it work out. But I had a blast hanging out with the Famicast guys, and Ty Sugar is one of those people who has been around since the 90s doing this stuff. And
ridiculous.
I say this mainly to you, John, because I know you've known Ty almost as long as I have, and you got to hang out with him some in person back in the old days of E3. Ty is what got to be one of the most consistent people I've ever met. I mean, when I got to see Ty in Japan, I hadn't seen him in at least a decade. And this is someone I've known for over 20 years, and I don't think he's really changed at all since the first time I ever talked to him. I mean, I'm not saying he's not capable of personal growth, but like, if you remember Ty from 2001, he's the same guy. Like he's interested in the same things. His humor is the same. He looks the same. He sounds the same. It was pretty. I was like, wow, I've changed so much in the time that I've known Ty, and I'm not sure he's changed at all. He's a singular person, and it was delightful. I mean, I was grinning ear to ear the entire time I got to be around Ty, because it was like so nostalgic being around him, but also like, wow, you are that guy all the time. You're still that guy all the time. Unbelievable.
I met him at E3 and he ambushed myself and an old timer who had met him before at the Natsume booth of all goddamn places. And all he wanted to do was play Gabrielle's Ghostly Groove, which is like a fucked up rhythm game they had on the DS. And so he's just stood there and played it for like a while we're trying to do an interview, and all I could think about, because I just played it, is that game's fucking terrible. Why is he still playing it? What is happening? And afterwards he's like,
checks out.
Did you play it? And I'm like, yeah, it sucked. Why did you play it? Like, to be clear, for me to walk away from an E3 demo and go, wow, that sucked. Like, it's gotta be wretched. And like, I was like, boy, that was not good. Holy shit. And like my image of him, I had never seen him before. I didn't even know what he looked like. But like, instantly he talked, and I'm like, oh, that's Ty. What the fuck? How did he find us? How did he find us?
You would say to him, yeah, that game's terrible. And he's like, yeah, I know.
He'd be like, it's great.
And he would just laugh. Yeah, he would just laugh.
He was so locked into it. It was great. You're right. Like, you would not have been able to get through that interview. It would have been the most frustrating. It'd have been fun for like 20 minutes, and then you would have just been frustrated.
I'll just say, Ty has been on this podcast before. You could go back and listen to those and maybe get a sense of what I'm talking about. A 2-hour interview with him is not going to happen. Okay.
No.
Absolutely
not.
He is a wonderful guy and a legend. So I had the time of my life hanging out with him, and I spent most of a day with Danny, going around Akihabara and eating weird Japanese spaghetti And
that checks out.
And then James Charlton took me to a vegan ramen place inside Tokyo Station, and we had a lovely time. And talked for hours. So yeah, it was a blast. And you know, all those guys are, they're like RFN cousins. You know, the Famicast started out as kind of a spinoff of this show, and was hosted on the same feed for a lot of years. And it was, that was great. So, I'm just getting nostalgic at this point, really.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. I only got to meet 2 of them when I was in Japan because JC was sick. We just didn't book anything with Ty. I think he was probably out trying to find the last unclaimed Xbox Series X in Japan. We met Matt Walker, who was there, but of course he worked for Capcom at the time, and he took us to the chicken place that's basically the restaurant for the Capcom studio headquarters. I can't remember the other stuff that we did while we were there. We ran in with those guys. But yeah, I also recorded my episode of Famicast from the hotel room, which was actually in our case from the Airbnb. It was just like, this is so ridiculous. Because I think I had a scheduled meeting with one of them the next day, and I'm like, what are we doing? This is dumb. That whole crew would be interesting to talk to for different reasons. Like how we leverage the Japan correspondent back when it was important that we have somebody in Japan who could go cover news for us.
Crucial. I mean, they weren't just that; they were shipping us games and hardware a lot of the time. So they were like an import-export broker. You know, our people in Japan, they were helping us get 20 copies of Mario Sunshine on the Japanese release date, so we could write an FAQ walkthrough for it. And put up about 8 different reviews of that same game. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with it. I'm so lost in memory lane at this point.
We're fine. No, you're good. You're good. Like we were going to talk about some games. I don't know. Do you want to, or do you want to just keep going?
No, I mean, we should talk about some games if you have time.
I would like, it's been a while since you've done some new business with us. I would like for you to talk about a game that you referred to as having reached its middle ages.
Oh, the midlife crisis.
It's midlife crisis. Yeah. I assume you were talking about the game's midlife crisis.
Yeah, not my own.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So, okay, the game in question is Marvel Snap. And I've actually wanted to talk about this game on RFN for a while. It's a mobile phone game. It's on PC as well. And I don't see it coming to any other platforms really. I don't think this is going to get a Switch port. It's probably not economical to do it. So it's basically a free to play game. Although you certainly can spend money on it, and more so lately, I think. But it's not a game. It's not the kind of game I would usually play. John was, commenting on this during the break. It doesn't seem like something that I would get into, and I agree. The way it happened was, I guess it was probably about 3 years ago now. I was playing Magic cards with some friends of mine here in town. And some old friends, we play old cards. We get into a lot of arguments about the rules and what happens when you play this or that. And just, it's very casual. And I think Marvel Snap had just come out maybe that day or that week. And one of my very old best friends he had gotten knocked out of the Magic round early and had a little bit of time to kill while the rest of us finished up, before we reset for the next match. And so he was kind of playing around with this on his phone and telling us about it and showing it to us. And I looked at it and I thought, so the appeal of Marvel Snap is it is a collectible card game that is very strategy oriented. So it has a certain DNA in common with Magic the Gathering, and that is the vector by which I ended up getting way too deep into it. I didn't take to it right away. I resisted. At first I was like, no, I can't, phone games, they're dangerous or they're bad. I don't trust them. I don't want to spend money on them. And then they disappear the next week. And so I didn't try Snap for a few months, and I don't remember really why I eventually did it. Maybe my friend was just persistent, said, I think you should try this. Like maybe we could play it together sometime. And so I did eventually get it, and I have played it just about every single day for the last 3 years. So it is my most played game ongoing, in general. Um, and a lot of the reason I play it so frequently is because it is a live service game with a lot of rotating daily goals and things like that. And because it's free to play and I am a cheapskate and I don't like spending money on it, I will often play it more in order to avoid spending some money on it. So that's how they get you. Or maybe is that how I get them? I don't know. But it works out. I do spend a little bit of money on it. They have like a season pass that I think is pretty good value, and it's like $10. So I don't spend that every month, but most of the time I will. And you get a card as part of that. And so it depends a little bit on, do I think the card looks good? Is that going to be fun to play? But most of the time I will buy that. And then otherwise I generally don't spend any money on it other than that. So it's like low stakes. You can spend a lot of money on it if you want to. I don't think you should. And I don't think you really need to. With that said, spending the amount of money I do on it is pretty clutch, because I think if you're trying to play Marvel Snap completely free to play, it's very difficult to keep up with the new cards that they release. And you probably are going to struggle to be competitive. And so that doesn't seem like a great experience. I mean, I'm not that far away from a free to play user of it, but I spend enough money on it that I keep up really quite well with the new card releases. I can't get every new card that comes out. They put out about 1 or 2 a week. And I can't get them all, and that's okay. I don't want them all, honestly. Sometimes they put cards out and I'm like, no, I don't need that. I don't like playing that style. That card doesn't seem that good. I don't want to deal with that, so I'm fine not getting everything. And you certainly don't need all the cards, but I get most of them, and that's fun. It keeps it fresh. It is, I don't want to get too deep in the mechanics. I don't think that's necessary, but I mean, Marvel Snap is like, what works great about it is the games are really fast. Unlike Magic the Gathering and or even Hearthstone, Marvel Snap, the games are over in like 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes most of the time. And they even do special modes where sometimes they're even a lot faster than that. Like sometimes the games are over in 60 seconds. Like you play the whole thing, the whole match is over in 60 seconds. So it works really well as a phone game because you can fit it into these irregular, kind of pockets of time throughout your day when you don't really have enough time to go grab the Switch and boot something up and go find a banana in Donkey Kong. You can get in a match of this. And so often I'll play multiple because fun and and it's kind of part of my day now, but you can definitely just kind of squeeze one in, and I like that about it. And the cards, most of they're Marvel Comics characters or MCU characters, so like most of the characters I'm somewhat familiar with. There's certainly a ton of obscure stuff in there that I don't know. It's fun. Sometimes I go see the Marvel movies now and I'm like, oh, I know that character because I have his card. Like I've never read a comic with this character, but I'm familiar enough because I have the card and I play that card. So that's kind of neat. But you don't really need to know anything about Marvel to enjoy it. The other thing I think is really clever about it is that you make your own deck of cards. So you have, a collection of cards that grows over time as you earn new cards, but you have this whole collection and you can make your own deck custom out of that, but the decks are only 12 cards. So, like I have a few hundred different cards that I've collected over the years, but each deck only has 12. And so the nice thing about that is it doesn't take long to put one together. It's not that difficult to figure out why your deck is working and why it's not. And in the span of playing a round of Snap, you will see most of the cards in your deck every single time. And that's really helpful to understand what is it your cards do? Which ones do you need? Which ones work and which ones don't? What's competitive and what's not? And because the games are fast, you can play a lot of matches against random people. You get it's a lot of matchmaking. You can play games really fast and experience, see how your deck matches up to a lot of different kinds of opposition, and you can go back and fine tune it very quickly. And this kind of loop of like figuring out, what kind of deck do you like to play? What's effective? Which cards do you have? Which cards do you have that would make it better? Which cards do you not own yet that you should try to go out and get in order to make your deck work right? That stuff, it's like, it's got a shrunk down, very condensed version of the experience that you might have playing Magic the Gathering. But instead of spending thousands of dollars and decades of accumulating cards and learning all the minutia of how the different rules interact and stuff, Snap is a lot more streamlined. It's a lot faster, much more accessible. It's like it scratches many of the same itches that I used to get from playing Magic when I was in my teens and my 20s in college, that I don't have time or money for anymore. Like when I go play Magic with my friends now, I'm mostly playing old cards because I've already got them. Like I'm not trying to keep up the meta of Magic the Gathering. I can't afford that, and I don't have time for it. So that's not going to happen. But Snap, I can keep up with relatively easily. The midlife crisis I referred to is that the game seems to be losing some of its audience to other games. And maybe because of that, or maybe just in tandem with that, the developers of the game are kind of cranking up the opportunities to spend money, and they're hiding more cards behind, you got to spend real money on this, or if you want the card now, you got to spend real money, or you could wait a month and then maybe get it with some of your free to play currencies that you've been building up. So it starts to feel more haves and have-nots, and it's harder for people to get into the game. I think actually it's tough to come and talk about this game to an audience who might not be so familiar with it, because I think right now the way Marvel Snap is set up, it's not that easy to start it right now. And I hope that they're going to fix that. But I think right now the problem is they're releasing new cards faster than ever. And so it's hard for me to keep up with them. And I've played the game a lot, and I've played it for quite a while now, for most of the time it's existed. And I still have kind of trouble keeping up with it. And arguably they're trying to convince people like me to just spend more money, and that'll make it easier to keep up with. Well, that motivation isn't going to work on me. I'm too stubborn. I'm too cheap. And I see it coming from a mile away, and I'm like, no. I'm not dealing with that. I can work around that. I can get by. But I think with people coming into the game really fresh, you'll have a lot of fun for a few weeks, because you unlock all the early cards, all the basic stuff, all the things that they want you to have in your kind of fun, in your foundation of your collection. You get that stuff fairly quickly. You get a few new cards every day when you first start playing the game. And that's very exciting. Once that slows down to a trickle, and you're only getting like one card a week, then it's a lot. And that's normal. That's the way it is for me. I get about one new card a week. I'm okay with that because, I'm used to it. But I think that it was tough for me when I first hit that inflection point, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to keep playing this if I'm not getting cards really fast anymore. The problem is I had actually caught up to the cards that were available. So I wasn't able to unlock cards as fast as I was before, because I was running out of cards to get. And so now I'm at the front of the wave, where I'm getting them as out. I think it's very hard to get to that point if you're coming in fresh now. So I think there's some ramp up for new people that the developers really haven't. They need to go back and fix some of that stuff and kind of update the game so it's a little more accessible. How that's going to happen, I don't know. They seem like they have their pants on fire most of the time. They would put out new cars with bugs and stuff all the time. And there's a lot of people complaining. A lot of the player base is complaining constantly about the monetization and the rate of cards that are coming out, and this and that. People are going to complain anyway, but it does seem like the complaints are getting louder and people are just quitting. So I wonder if Marvel Snap is going to survive for another 2 or 3 years. I sure hope it does. It is so fun. I still, as much as I play this game, there's at least 2 or 3 times a week where I just have this incredibly satisfying match where some wacky stuff happens, or I play some combination that like I'm not even sure if it's going to work, and then it does, and it's like, wow, I can't believe that worked, and I whooped this person's ass, and I won all these cubes and ranked up and everything. It's just extremely satisfying, and I just find myself still pretty often saying out loud, hot damn, what a game. It's so fun. I mean, it's so good. If you like these kinds of, little strategies of putting together a little combo in your deck of cards and figuring out a way to make it work and then fine tuning that so it works more consistently. If you like that one-on-one competition where you don't have to give a shit about the person on the other end because you're not communicating with them really, and the matchmaking is very automatic and very rapid. And so you can just jump into the next one and just play another one. And it's super fun. It's a really, really good game. I hate to see the direction it seems like it's going right now. It doesn't seem very healthy, and I wonder how sustainable it's going to be. But I've had a hell of a time with it the last few years, and I hope it gets better. I hope it recovers. It's not in a terrible place right now, but I think it's trending maybe in not such a great direction. And we'll see if it maintains a player base and if they, keep coming up with good ideas to keep it interesting. But yeah, thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it, because I feel like I've had some of this bottled up inside for a long time. And I do think it's a game
is how much, when you play people, how much is there a tendency to adhere to the meta? Because I mean, most of those games when you play them online, people play the same cards. Like, these are the same 5 overpowered cards that everybody has in their deck, right? Like, how much of that is there?
So there is a meta, but I think the people who design the game are particularly good at balancing it, and they put out rebalancing patches like every week or two. And they keep a really close eye. And one of the things that they're very interested in is making sure there's a lot of diverse strategies that can be successful at any one time. So cards will come and go as new cards come out. A lot of times older cards interact with them in kind of novel, unexpected ways. And so sometimes a card that you haven't played for a long time, it's like, oh, all of a sudden I want to put that in all my decks because it does something that it didn't really used to do. But also one thing they're very good at is going back and looking at old cards that everybody has, but it seems like nobody plays. They have all the data on this stuff. So they know that like there's a certain card that everybody gets almost automatically when you start playing the game. It's like a very basic thing. But then once you get better cards, you're never going to go back to that one. And sometimes these are very popular characters like The Thing or Spider-Man. So, right. I think the people making the game are cognizant like, hey, we don't want Spider-Man to be a lame card in this game. So what they'll go back, sometimes every now and then they'll go back and just completely retool an old card and make it work in a totally different way. And now all of a sudden you see that card popping up and you can do all kinds of new things with it. It's really cool, and I think they're very cognizant that they don't want the game to become boring. They don't want you to be playing against the same decks over and over and over again. And so they're very careful to make sure that there are always like several different viable approaches. And even within all these different kind of archetypes of different decks that are very popular and very successful, even within each one of those, there's quite a bit of like different flavors you can put on it to make it work a little bit better, or have, build in some defense mechanisms against certain other cards that are popular right now. And then when those cards go away, now maybe you can swap out your response to it with something else. And so that kind of flux is always going on. So it's a delicate game that they're playing with to try to keep the game from getting, from sort of becoming monopolized by certain cards, but they're really good about making sure that doesn't happen.
There is a power creep that happens in any of these gacha based games that go on for a long time. Yeah. One of the longest running ones at this point is the Fire Emblem one that Nintendo runs. It's 7 or 8. I think it's 10 years old now, which is crazy old for one of these things, because you do eventually hit like the top of the power creep where the meta has advanced so far, it's hard to keep pushing the meta. But you have to, because otherwise people can just become contented with the cards or the characters or whatever they have. Like, I'm at the top of the meta. I don't need to keep investing in the thing. I'll keep winning. So you do have to kind of push the envelope. But to your point, that then requires them be very generous with new players so they can build something to even approach competitiveness.
Yeah.
While they're also trying to learn. So, like, they're going to make mistakes because they don't know what they're building yet. But, yeah, it makes it hard to kind of build a game that's easy to come in on, but still extracts payment from those players who are new, but also makes it feel like they're competitive early, but that the game has enough growth that people who have been around for a while stay engaged. And Heroes handles this by just giving you an absolute shitload of pulls when you create a new account. Like, just an unfathomable amount of orbs just right out of the gate. Like, here's 100. It's good for like 40 pulls. Have fun. Because they just expect you to just sit there and just hammer, and that's how you're going to get up to be competitive enough, in air quotes. But that's that doesn't help somebody who's lapsed. That doesn't help somebody catch up if they're not a full-time player. Like, how do you manage that line? It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
It's also kind of interesting that despite the fact we've been doing this for 15 plus years, not this game, but games like this, that it still feels like that there's a lot of games that don't know how to answer that question.
I don't think getting back lapsed players and getting them back into the game, I don't think has been figured out. Certainly not in Marvel Snap, and probably not in most games like this.
I'd say most games.
Yeah,
period.
It's a really tough problem to solve. I do want to say Marvel Snap is not a gacha game, so I don't want to too closely associated with Fire Emblem Heroes.
Is there any random? Is it random at all? What cards you get, or you just get them?
It is. There is a little bit of randomness in the early, like for new players. I think there might be some randomness, but where I'm at, not really, not very much. You can buy a pack which contains one card, and so sometimes when you buy a pack, you can get a preview of what it could be, but it may be you'll get one of these 3 cards or one of these 6 cards, depending on which ones you already own or not. Like it won't give you a duplicate. And so if you already own most of them, then the possibilities are much more limited, and so you have a much better idea of which one you're going to get. But that's not really gacha, it's not a slot machine kind of a thing.
It's not. No, I didn't. I was aware of the packs. I didn't realize that it accounts for what you already
and also
have.
there are quite a few different ways to just like buy a card either with real money or with in-game stuff that you can earn from playing it. Where exactly what card you're going to get, and you're like, I target it. Like, I've been reading online that this one card is essential to play a certain kind of deck that looks fun and cool and successful. I want that one card. There are ways to target that card and go get that one. It's thankfully, and there's a lot of randomness in the game mechanics when you're playing it, but in terms of acquiring cards, it's not that random. You can be pretty deliberate about, I want this kind of card. I want to play this kind of deck. And in fact, I think they're getting better at making that stuff make sense as time goes on.
That's probably it then. That's probably the mechanism of like, hey, we'll get you in by giving you the mechanism to get some of these cards early. And we'll sort of give you some kind of guide to like, here's a lot of times these games have a meta that requires more than just like, I know how to build a deck, but also how to utilize the deck.
The tactical play and understanding what the opponent's doing is more important than building a good deck, frankly. Because you can go online and there are only 12 cards. It's not very difficult to reproduce a deck that's popular online. You can download a code and paste it into the app and it'll make the deck for you if you want. So they support that. I like to make my own. I don't really like to go out and find decks that somebody else has created, because like figuring out the deck crafting is a lot of the appeal of the game to me. Like I want to tweak something and then go play a bunch and see how it works, and then go back and retool it and tweak it again and try to make it better or try to fix the problem that I keep seeing. Like I can't, for some reason, when I draw this card, it's always like it's never the right time to play it. So anyway, I just think the tooling around with making your own deck is a lot of fun, and it's only 12 cards, so it's not like a huge commitment to make a deck.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely just go get a list of cards off online, and it'll be a powerful deck, but if you don't really know how to play it, you're not going to be successful with that. So yeah, there's a lot of tactics. There's also a fair bit of randomness in the game. There's a Smash Brothers kind of aspect to it, actually, where you're trying to win these 3 lanes. You can play cards into one of the 3 lanes, and whoever wins at least 2 of the lanes wins the game. And there's a lot of mind games, a lot of head tricks you can do. But yeah, it's a really smart, it's a really well designed game. I think the card designs are very clever, very cool, and a lot of great art. I mean, it's comic book stuff, so there's a lot of great artwork too. So there's a lot going for it, and I hope they figure it out and figure out how to sustain it in the long term, because it is one of my favorite games. It's really brilliant stuff.
Emails. I haven't said the email address today. It's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Update. Is the email form fixed? No, it is not. Do I know why? No, I do not.
The watch continues. Email form watch 2025 continues.
Did I spend 16 hours in 3 days doing podcasts this week? No, I spent 20 hours in 3 days. I haven't had a chance to look at the damn form. It doesn't work though. So not available. So send them through email to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You could do that. We'll get them. We may read them. We may even use them on the show. I don't promise any of those, but it's possible. And of course, Jonny, I want to thank you for joining us today. It was awesome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me rant and ramble so much about all these different things. Just
it's fine. I think
appreciate the
audience will
opportunity to get out of my system.
Perfect.
I hope it was therapeutic, Jonny.
Oh, very.
Well, what we didn't tell you is that while you've been gone, we've slowly turned this into a therapy operation. We're not. The world has need
for that.
We're not good at it, but we will take your money.
Yes.
Those two things don't have to go together. But it's also catching up with you. Is there anything that you might want people to, like, social media stuff you're working on? Anything?
I'm on Blue Sky. You can follow me or not. It's fine either way. Other than that, sales pitch. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to plug. You should go subscribe to Radio Trivia Podcast Edition and the Famicast and Talk Nintendo and all of our brother and sister and cousin podcasts.
Cool. All right. Well then, Greg.
Yes.
Yeah. I need you to give me some music.
Well, I'm sure John is just going to maybe start slicing his ears off at this point if he's ever actually going to listen to the episode. But it's got to be Kirby, I'm afraid. Because not only did we have it does, it legitimately does, because not only did we have the Air Riders Direct that we discussed in the first segment, but there was also the small matter of the DLC for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the Switch 2.
That's right.
Update, upgrade package along with the Starcross World. New content is going to be coming out a matter of days after this episode is published. So it's a Kirby moment. I did not make it, so it simply is. And so, you've kind of spoiled for choice music-wise with Kirby. So I thought we'd go for something from the original Air Ride, seeing as they, sort of fit to skip to the Air Riders, the sequel for the Nintendo Music app. Let's go to the original. In particular, Checker Knights. This is something that I first heard in Brawl as part of the, Kirby sort of representation in that soundtrack. And one of the things that Air Ride had, that was actually a bit lacking in Brawl itself, was stuff that had that orchestral sort of oomph that this provides. Very bouncy, very bombastic, energetic, great fun. I'm very confident the Air Riders soundtrack will deliver as well. But the original had some pretty good stuff in it too.
I'm kind of dumbfounded that they gave Sakurai 45 minutes to talk about whatever the hell that was and couldn't find a couple minutes to mention the fact that the DLC for Kirby and the Forgotten Land comes out in like a week.
It is, it is very much separate. That is a HAL operation, and this is a Sakurai, Sora, Bandai Namco, scenario. So,
I guess.
You might think maybe it'd be a little more coordinated and so on. I also thought he might have spoken about the music a little bit longer, because that is usually a priority for him. Maybe he often will assemble a dream team of composers. You think about who worked on Kid Icarus Uprising, the absolute phalanx of people that form up for the Smash Brothers games.
He's saving it for the next Kirby Air Riders Nintendo Direct. Another 45 minutes.
Yeah, you can't give away the store.
It'll only be 38, that's for sure. Please. I mean, we did talk about the fact that Kirby Air Riders has an absolutely enormous file size. I presume that's because he jammed a bunch of music in it. 25 gigabytes! Yeah. 25 gigabytes!
Again, this is why you need your big micro SD express. When your sort of action racing games are going to take 25 gigs, it's going to fill up fast.
Versus Bonanza, which is 8.7. Famously, no music Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Fair.
Is a third of the size.
You wait till you get to the Metal Gear Solid 4 length cutscenes.
All right.
What is it's almost to the point of what are you sticking in the files, man? So yeah, I'm sure we'll hear. Bonanza's got 100-song album. What if I give you 200? All right, but on that, it's time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys, and congrats on 10 years.
Thank you.